A blood-curdling scream for help from a ship echoed throughout the galaxy, but there was no reply. Dead bodies were piled up in a room, yet no one cleaned them up because everyone had already withered away. The cause was a creature named Morph, who is also our main character. He unexpectedly came into this world without any warning, in the form of the alien species Amoth, a species considered the weakest in the game. But that's okay, as a true master, who has beaten the game countless times and knows everything. Becoming the overlord of this galaxy is something not difficult. Let's join Morph's journey right away. In the midst of the vast universe, inside a cold metal cargo ship, the main character had no choice but to admit that he had turned into an alien in this sci-fi survival game. What game? Space survival. You have to choose one of the races that exist in this vast galaxy. A survival role-playing game where you choose and evolve into one of the races in the vast universe. In that game, sometimes the main character would become a metal gremlin, destroying human spaceships. At other times, he would turn into a mutant monster, slaughtering enemies on the battlefield, or play the role of a monster swarm leader, leading an army to conquer planets. The main character had played as all the most terrifying characters and creatures, but he truly only liked and stuck with one single race, which was the ferocious alien species Morph. And he often called it by the name Amoth, a race that infinitely strengthens itself by exploiting the genetic information of its victims. In a late game, this monster's power is incredibly terrifying, but conversely, it's very difficult for it to survive in the early stages. It has no ability to communicate or cooperate with other races, which is why it's considered the worst alien race in the game. As for the main character, he loved this weak race because of its ability to freely evolve and strengthen itself according to his own will. A system panel appeared, with the race as ferocious alien species Morph, state, larval, sole objective, survival, attribute, super sense. The main character stared at the system panel. A bright look in his eyes appeared and then vanished, showing clear disappointment, probably because of this terrible attribute in the early game. In a form resembling a scorpion, he left because worrying or complaining was useless now. But just as he turned around, an unbearable itching sensation made him roll around. This was the molting phenomenon of a morph creature. Although it was normal, he didn't think it would be this itchy. After that process, his hungry stomach rumbled continuously, forcing the little scorpion to find food to nourish himself. Walking and observing, seeing the high-end equipment, he concluded that this seemed to be a ship of some super corporation or the Galactic Association. If he were to be caught now, he would surely be put on the chopping block. Wasting no more time, he used his super sensibility, standing still while being able to see and feel everything around him. And of course, the food stash on the ship was also found. The main character quickly ran there, jumped onto a metal container, which even had a password to guard against thieves. Like him, once again with super sense, the ferocious alien species, Morph easily found the password. A few pieces of food like chocolate were put into his mouth. They looked delicious, but to Morph, it was no different from chewing straw. Luckily, it still had some nutrients. Suddenly, a cockroach scurried past. It was fast, but how could it escape Morph's super sense and agile tail? No more talk. He immediately put the cockroach into his mouth. A meal full of protein. Suddenly, the system panel appeared again with a notification. Predation effect has been activated. Wing gene fragment has been obtained. Wing attribute has been acquired from the cockroach. Do you want to use wings? Quite surprised by this notification. Even he didn't expect to be so lucky, having already obtained a gene fragment. Gene fragments are extremely important for an Amoth. The more genetic data obtained, the more powerfully the body's organs evolve. Morph was delighted. The wing gene wasn't too bad for the early game. He immediately pressed use. And from Morph's back, 2 pairs of wings slowly grew, identical to those of cockroach. After struggling for a while with the newly acquired gene, he finally figured out how to use it. Morph ate and ate to recover energy, but he could only fly for a few seconds before landing flat on his face. The energy supply was not enough to sustain it. Morph thought to himself, to make use of these wings, he would surely need some special skill. No sooner said than done. He continuously hunted cockroaches with his agile tail. He had already gobbled down 20 of them and was starting to get sick of this raw cockroach dish, but the special effect had yet to appear. Hard work pays off. Finally, the system panel appeared. This time, Morph received the kite and shell attribute, an attribute that increases a creature's defense with its growth level. It wasn't rated as too terrible, but right now, it was almost useless. Morph sighed. What he had hoped for was the vigorous life force attribute, but it didn't appear. The vigorous life force attribute is extremely important. It reduces energy consumption and slows down the aging process. This is a common intrinsic attribute in insects and plants. With it, Morph wouldn't have to worry so much about food. To put it simply, without it, Morph would have to eat cockroaches every day and would probably need to catch a ton of them just to survive. For a better life, Morph continued to explore, constantly changing his hunting grounds. With the two newly acquired attributes, Morph considered himself a formidable moth. His speed, reflexes, sharpness, and agility were all elevated to a whole new level. While he was hunting enthusiastically, Morph suddenly stopped at the system's voice. Predation effect activated. The system screen appeared. Morph received the vigorous life force attribute of the cockroach. Morph's body became more muscular, looking much sleeker and more refined than before. Before he could celebrate for long, something happened. He almost forgot that all the humans on this ship were enemies. Morph just felt vibrations through the walls. The faint footsteps made him realize that he didn't have much time left. If he didn't want to end up on the chopping block, he had to evolve quickly to get past this larval stage as soon as possible. To do that, Morph decided to leave this compartment, and now the game would truly begin. Morph already had a destination in mind. He decided to go to the cold chamber next to the reactor. It was an important facility that wouldn't have many people passing by. In a worst-case scenario, if something went wrong, he could also destroy the reactor and the cold chamber, and then just bolt. Easier said than done. But the path to the cold chamber was not easy at all. He had to get past a ventilation fan. If it hit him once, his body would be split in two. Just looking at it was enough to make him break out in a cold sweat. But it was necessary. Morph slowly removed the protective iron cage. Facing the ventilation fan, Morph considered destroying it, but that would surely make a loud noise and attract everyone. There was no other way. To get to the cold chamber, he could only squeeze through the gaps between those fan blades. With his knowledge, experience, and expertise, Morph decided to risk it all. If he succeeded, he'd win big. If he failed, he'd be in deep shit. Taking advantage of the gap between two blades, Morph darted through. Luckily, he made it through. Morph breathed a sigh of relief and thought to himself, "That was lucky. I'm alive." This place was really spacious. Morph continued deeper inside. This cold room was not only a safe haven, but also had a new type of food for him, plump spiders. Before he could eat, Morph suddenly overheard a conversation between two staff members. "Hey, what's the result of test subject number 026? The other guy sighed and said, "Failed again. With this result, the captain will probably chew our heads off." Standing above and hearing the whole story, Morph had thought this was a regular research ship like many others, but seeing its design and scale, it seemed to belong to a supercorporation. Supercorporations are groups of prosperous people around the solar system, and they are still essentially Earthlings. Instead of following the government, large corporations dominate nations, and the majority of the population, there are extreme materialists. Most human races in the game are usually neutral, but among them, the supercorporations lean towards more shady, chaotic connections. They conduct research, turning healthy people into slaves, which, by comparison, is even worse than in the real world. Morph used his cockroach wings to fly down. Below, he decided to scout the place today to see if there was anything more interesting. No sooner said than done. Morph used his super sensibility. This was very important. Depending on the type of research on this ship, Morph's path would change. If it was a research facility for mutant super soldiers for ground combat, he could obtain a sturdy body and combat abilities. But if it was an experiment on psychic powers, one of which belonged to the EO race from outer space, then Morph could surely obtain that super powerful psychic ability too. In his opinion, he still preferred the psychic one, but on second thought, this was too greedy and just his fantasy. Suddenly, a cry for help rang out. Curious, Morph crept closer to eavesdrop. In front of Morph was an experimental column. He recognized the creature inside as an emit species. Its characteristic is storing oxygen, a trait considered the most useless for an emit species. To find more clues, Morph once again spread his super sense. he learned that the omit species was being electrocuted, which was probably what the two researchers had mentioned in their conversation earlier. Morph also learned that just pressing the button below could end the experiment. Being a good person, he helped the omit species to end its suffering. All he got in return was a gentle thank you from the other. That was all Morph could do to help. After helping, he quickly hid, because he heard footsteps approaching the lab. Just as he hid, the lab door opened. A young woman entered, followed by a middle-aged man who was cowering behind her and explaining, "Please extend the research time." But to her, time was gold. She needed the results immediately to report to the company before they came and made a mess of this place. And of course, if there were no results, his position would also be reconsidered by the company. Hearing this, his face changed color, and he repeatedly begged the woman. The woman turned and walked to the experiment, saying as she went, "Of course, I don't want that to happen either. I'm also looking forward to this research experiment. If you can find that skill from test subject 26, then a promotion to head researcher is not out of the question. Not only that, head researcher is just the beginning. If it goes well, they could even connect with the Mars side. They are also keeping a close eye on this project." Suddenly, an idea popped up. The researcher mentioned a substance called selonium. This is an awakening drug created by the Star Association. They had tried it once. The result was that the host died immediately, leaving only the selonium behind. That woman didn't think much, immediately ordering the use of selonium on the amid creature. Even though she was warned that if the host couldn't absorb the neutralizing agent, it could die instantly. But she didn't want to listen. There should have been results by now. Waiting until now was too late, and if it dragged on, the consequences would be unimaginable. Hearing about the consequences, the researchers scurried off to do the experiment. First, 0.01 milliliters was injected into the amid creature's body. Seeing no reaction, he added 0.03, then 0.05, and it wasn't until 0.07 that the amid creature reacted, its body trembling continuously. Seeing something happening, the woman ordered all the selonium to be injected into the amid. Seeing the researcher hesitate, she did it herself to speed things up. All the selonium was injected into the amid. Inside the test tube, it could only scream in pain, but humans couldn't hear its desperate cries. They smiled with satisfaction at the experiment's progress. Morph witnessed everything and was the only one who could hear the amid's cries for help, yet he didn't dare do anything. After a while, the experiment ended. The woman was extremely excited about the reaction and told the researcher to quickly run more tests on the subject. After saying that, she happily turned to leave. Before leaving, she reminded the staff, "Report any experimental results to me." The staff member could only bow and say yes. After taking 2 steps, the woman suddenly sensed something and turned back, but there was nothing behind her. Feeling that she was probably just being paranoid, she continued on her way out of the lab. Morph stood behind a small test vial up high, witnessing everything. He felt extremely uncomfortable hearing the cries for help, but he couldn't do anything. Morph decided that he would show her what karma is. In just a few more days, she would definitely be gone. Morph began his plan. He spread his fluid around the ship, then used his super sense, and now he could almost feel the entire ship. The locations on the ship, where the enemies were, and what they were doing, where they were going, and what they were discussing, Morph had basically grasped the entire map of the ship. It would help him move around better. It took a full 4 days for Morph's nest to be completed. After finishing it, Morph constantly moved throughout the ship, catching cockroaches and spiders to eat and monitoring the enemy's movements. During that time, it seemed the female commander had finished her work and left. According to the information he gathered, her name was Kisaragi Yujin, and she was the head of the research department. This Kisaragi was the most important person on this ship and the biggest threat to Morph at the moment. 2 days ago, there was an accident here. A subject in the lab escaped, causing chaos in the laboratory. Immediately, she created a device that could find the subject. The rest of the story isn't worth telling. They simply found and took down the test subject. If that subject had escaped through the air vents that day, Morph might have met it, and it seems he would have taken that woman out immediately if he had the chance. Down below, Kisaragi felt as if someone was watching her. She turned her head to look, but just like last time, there was no one behind her. Seeing Kisaragi looking pensive, her 2 bodyguards asked, "Is something wrong, ma'am?" She answered vaguely, "It's nothing, let's go." Over here, Morph, who had just boasted about taking her out immediately, was now cowering in a corner, avoiding her gaze. Morph broke out in a cold sweat at this human's sensitivity. He suspected she had some kind of psychic ability that made her so perceptive. To be clear, psychic abilities are almost like a superpower, for example, the kind of extrasensory perception that Morph possesses. The basic known abilities are telepathy, controlling behavior and thoughts, and so on and so forth. However, for humans, only a few possess psychic abilities. Morph fell into deep thought again, regardless of whether that Kisaragi woman had psychic powers or not. But with bodyguards always by her side, he couldn't think of any way to approach and take her down. While lost in thought, a notification panel appeared. Morph received another ability. This time, what he got was a paralyzing toxin in his blood. It seemed useless, but was incredibly useful in this desperate situation. Just one drop could paralyze a grown adult, and the effect of this toxin only lasted for 5 minutes. While chewing on the food that tasted like straw, Morph felt that this wasn't a good idea. Using this toxin for a one-on-one fight with an enemy would be okay, but she had too many guards. Even getting close was difficult, let alone using the toxin on her. Using this toxin was not a good idea at all. Morph decided to scout around again to come up with a new plan. Morph crept down below. The Amid trapped in the test tube was in pain, crying out to him for help. Morph felt that the Amid seemed better than yesterday. He came here to bring food to help the Amid. Morph put it directly into the test tube so the Amid could absorb it. Then he moved to the control panel and monitored the experiment. In here, this Amid had no special skills. He didn't know if it would undergo any further changes in this lab. Suddenly, Morph remembered that Kisaragi had a cat. She loved it very much. If he took down the cat, she would be furious, and then she might let her guard down. The time, place, and conditions were perfect. The cat was always alone, making it a very simple target. At this point, Morph decided to use the cat as bait for Kisaragi. Over here, the black cat wagged its tail, stretching as it just woke up. Morph, in the air vent, looked at it and lamented that this cat shouldn't be named Seza anymore. It should be named Your Majesty, because its life was as good as a king's, just eating and sleeping, a stark contrast to his own miserable fate of always having to hide to survive. It was truly an eyesore. Morph would find a way to take this cat down right now, and when that Kisaragi returned and saw her beloved cat on the chopping block, she would probably go crazy. But this place was a bit difficult to act in. This ventilation system looked simple, but through his super sense, it showed that there were many laser grids connected here. Touching them would trigger an alarm immediately. Extremely annoying was the only way to describe Morph's mood right now. He whipped his tail down to vent his frustration, but startled Seza with its sharp ears. It realized there was an intruder. It charged straight towards where Morph was hiding, pounding its paws repeatedly on the ventilation cover, which also set off the alarm. Two nearby guards thought there was an intruder and came to check, but what they saw was Seza frantically hitting the ventilation cover. This made both of them hold their heads and sigh, so tired of this stupid cat. Morph luckily hid to one side without being discovered. He scratched his head. It really wasn't simple. He had made a big mistake this time. It wasn't an accident just now. He had intentionally used his tail to lure it, but the result was a failure. Suddenly, a brilliant idea flashed. Morph realized the cat seemed bored with no one to play with it. This time, he would take advantage of the guard's reaction from before. A wicked smile slowly appeared. This plan would surely succeed. While Seza was in a deep sleep, a noise from the air vent suddenly made it open its eyes. It looked up, staring at the ventilation duct. It climbed up to see if there was anything to play with and discovered a trembling cockroach. The kitty's eyes suddenly lit up. It pushed hard on the ventilation cover, causing it to open, and then it jumped right inside. At the same time, the alarm went off. Although the two guards heard the alarm, they didn't bother to check, thinking it was just the cat being mischievous again. On the other hand, Seza was playing a game of cat and mouse with the cockroach, but it was unaware that it was being led to another area. While the kitty was still busy playing, Morph, lying in wait from above, attacked it with his long tail. With just one sting and its accompanying poison, the kitty's eyes rolled back, its body convulsed, and then it died on the spot. Not wanting to waste the prey, Morph decided to make a 7-course cat meal out of it. While it was hot, a little shrimp paste would make this twice as good. Scene change. The whole ship was in chaos. The most anxious person right now was probably Kisaragi. She and her bodyguards stormed into the ship's control room, where the captain was also present. She shouted, "Hey, Captain, when will I see Seza again?" The captain slowly replied, "The soldiers are still searching, so please wait a little longer." Hearing this answer, Kisaragi slammed the table in anger. "Wait until when? It's been 2 hours already." She went crazy and yelled in the captain's face, "My Seza always strictly adheres to meal times. It couldn't have gotten lost. Something must have happened." Despite facing her anger, the captain remained calm. "Head of the research team, let me repeat this. This is a spaceship. Unless that kitty was captured by someone who then escaped on a rescue craft. It's just somewhere on this ship. So for now, just wait." Making a fuss all over the ship just for a cat. Although he appeared calm on the outside, inside, the captain was gritting his teeth, barely tolerating this woman. And if she hadn't come from the capital's aristocracy, he would have probably put her in solitary confinement by now. The previous answer did nothing to quell Kisaragi's anger, despite the guards' warnings about being imprisoned for letting their guard down. She felt that punishment was too light. Those men should be executed to atone for their crime. This made even the captain startled. Her anger reaching its peak, Kisaragi growled, enunciating each word as clear as a nail being hammered. "The captain has the authority to carry out punishment, right? Use your authority right now." Sweat beaded on the captain's bald head. He knew the guards had made a mistake, but this punishment seemed a bit too much. Executing them just for not carefully guarding a cat could demoralize and shake the soldiers. Hearing the words, "just for this small matter," Kisaragi pushed her face close to the captain's, looking incredibly menacing. The captain, trembling with fear, corrected his words. What I mean is, let's let the search progress a bit more. Then it would be better to discuss punishing the guards." The nearby staff just stood silently to one side, not daring to say anything. Kisaragi was still not appeased by the captain's gentle words. She continued to berate him. "Captain, it seems you've forgotten. This whole thing happened because the guards failed to do their duty." The captain's face darkened. His calm composure was gone, replaced by a bowed head and admission of fault. "I understand everything you've said. I will take responsibility for this incident and use it to tighten military discipline." At this, Kisaragi could only hold her head, not knowing what else to say. She turned to leave, not forgetting to add a reminder. "Understood. I'll be back in 2 hours, but if there are still no results by then, you'd better give up that captain's seat you're sitting in." The captain could only listen helplessly to the lecture as Kisaragi left completely. Only then did he dare to get angry, slamming his hand hard on the table and muttering, "Where the hell is that damn cat playing hide-and-seek?" From the air vent above, Moff had observed the entire drama. He chuckled with delight. "Where? Like I tell you, it's in my stomach now. You can search with all your faith and hope." Besides that, Moff still had an unanswered question. After finishing off the cat, he received an ability called Wild Instinct. He didn't know what it was. The system had a feature to merge traits to create a new, more powerful one. Moff had gone through this countless times, so he had memorized all the formulas in this game. Already, earlier, while making a meal of that cat, the system suddenly appeared, and Moff received Wild Instinct from the feline species. This was a trait he had never seen before, even though he was a pro player who had played this game to death. After receiving Wild Instinct, the system immediately merged it with the super sensibility Moff got at the start of the game. Merging the two, it evolved into Predator's Instinct. Predator's Instinct, the super sense trait has been enhanced, able to perceive threats based on available information. Usage tip: great hunters always know how to predict the future. Upon receiving this skill, Moff tried to activate it to sense danger. But even though his super sensibility had become much stronger, the future prediction effect couldn't be activated. Moff speculated that this was probably a passive, self-activating trait. It wasn't working because he currently faced no real, life-threatening threats at all. This would probably require more time to research. For now, the task at hand was to see what that Kisaragi was up to. Moff chuckled to himself. She must be frantic by now. And indeed she was. Kisaragi angrily slammed her fist on the table, the sound echoing through the spaceship. Her face was flushed red, veins bulging all over it. Just as Moff thought, a person like her, who is only good to the things she cherishes, would immediately lose her composure when her precious thing is taken away. This was exactly what Moff was aiming for, to drive a wedge between this Kisaragi Yujin and the guards who followed her around all day. This incident wasn't guaranteed to make them turn against Kisaragi, but would at least cause a significant crack in their relationship. It started with the fact that the guards didn't like that cat at all. They had to watch piles of fresh, delicious meat, something they weren't even allowed to touch, become the cat's food 3 meals a day. So it was only natural for them to find the cat an eyesore, and along with that, to feel envious of Kisaragi. Natural. Closer to the heart of it was class resentment. Kisaragi Yujin came from the top tier of this megacorp. From the soldiers' perspective, they were enduring an absurd injustice. But complaining about her directly would bring extremely severe consequences, possibly even life-threatening ones. Therefore, that resentment and anger was transferred from the person to the cat. In other words, the cat was the chopping block, and they were taking their anger out on it. So what happens when the chopping block suddenly disappears? They no longer have a chopping block to strike, and now they have to go find that chopping block, the thing they FING hate. So the question is, will those soldiers still protect her as devotedly as before? Not only that, on Kisaragi's side, she no longer trusts these guards either. To her, their despicable negligence was the main reason she lost her pet. Moth grinned from ear to ear, silently thanking the kitten in his stomach. Without it, things would have been much more difficult. And now, it was time to take the gene fragments from that Kisaragi's hands. Her frustration having nowhere to go, Kisaragi ran to the experiment control panel, repeatedly pressing the electroshock button, causing the subjects in the test tubes to suffer endlessly. A series of test subjects screamed for help, but Kisaragi didn't hear. Nor did she care. She slowly approached the MIT's container, saying with a terrifying expression, "Oh, right, you're here too. You're not getting away." Then she gave a ghoulish smile. This time, it wasn't an electric shock like the others. The AMIT was injected with a ton of selenium. It screamed in pain, crying for help. But Kisaragi no longer had any human compassion. After satisfying her rage, she turned and left without a second thought. Witnessing the whole scene from afar, Moth's hatred for Kisaragi grew even more intense. The AMIT in the test chamber probably sensed Moth and called out to greet him. But Moth didn't know how to respond and could only turn and leave. In any case, there was no need for him to talk to them. Instead of offering a few words of greeting or comfort, Moth decided to give them what they really needed: revenge. 2 hours had passed. Kisaragi went to find the captain again to ask about the situation, but the answer was not what she wanted to hear. "We've only just begun the search. Please wait a little longer." Hearing the word wait, Kisaragi became furious. This time, she didn't call him captain politely. She called him by his name, Samuel Owo. "Are you challenging a capital noble?" The captain, now sweating profusely, stammered in reply. "I am the captain of this ship, squad leader." "Watch your tone." Kisaragi showed no respect. "That captain title, I can strip you of it any time I want." Hearing this, the old captain's blood rushed to his head. "Even a capital noble couldn't overstep their authority. I have the right to detain you, squad leader." Kisaragi, as if not believing her ears, asked again, "Huh? Detain me? Did you just say you want to detain me?" The two staff members beside them listened to the conversation in silence. Meanwhile, Moth, seeing the internal division, began to rejoice silently. To him, this situation was incredibly interesting. It seemed there was already discord between them. It just lacked a spark to set it off. Once again, Kisaragi left in a rage. And there was still no news of her cat. Arriving at the toilet door, she said to her 2 bodyguards, "I'll be right back after using the restroom." As soon as Kisaragi left, one of them took the opportunity, intending to go to the WC as well since he had to go. Seeing the opportunity right before his eyes, Moth quickly acted according to his pre-planned scheme. Normally, one of them would follow her, even if she went into the toilet. But it seemed they had had enough pressure for one day and didn't want to go in with her. Moreover, one of the guards had left, so now she was alone in the women's restroom. Furthermore, there was no security equipment in the restroom to hinder his actions. Now or never. This was the most perfect opportunity for a successful ambush. He absolutely could not let this once-in-a-lifetime chance slip away. Kisaragi was leaning down, washing her face to regain her composure, so she was unaware of Moth crawling on the wall and slowly approaching her. The venom was ready. Just one sting into Kisaragi, and she would be done for. Kisaragi finished washing her face, sighing about the troublesome events of the day. Suddenly, she was startled, feeling a danger lurking around her. Kisaragi whipped her head around in alarm, but it was too late. Moth had successfully closed in. Kisaragi tried to run, but couldn't escape. The venomous tail and the incredibly agile body. The scorpion tail, filled with venom, stabbed straight into the back of Kisaragi's neck. The poison spread quickly. Her entire body was paralyzed and collapsed, lying motionless on the ground without a struggle. Saliva dripped from Moth's mouth down. Below, she slowly looked up and saw a monster right above her. Moth opened his mouth, as wide as a sewer grate, and asked Kisaragi, "What do you feel now?" Fear was evident on Kisaragi's face, but being paralyzed, she couldn't even scream anymore. Without wasting any more time, Kisaragi's entire body ended up inside Moth's hungry stomach. At that moment, he could clearly feel Eugen's blood flowing in his body. The moment the genetic information from the blood traveled through the blood vessels to his brain, he felt it. The missing piece for his potential had been put in the right place. A notification panel appeared. Evolution conditions have been met. Do you wish to evolve? There was no reason for Moth to press no. He was about to press yes, when suddenly a flash of memory appeared in his head. A guard appeared and saw him in here. They opened fire. The result was that he was instantly eliminated, without even having time to do anything. Moth was bewildered, scratching his head, not knowing what those images were. He realized it might be his newly acquired predator's instinct skill. So that's what it does. And if that's true, the guards will be in here soon. Moth was debating whether to run or not, but there was no time left. He decided to eliminate the guard who was coming in right here. The guard, probably because Kisaragi was taking too long, decided to step inside to see what was wrong. The sight before him made him freeze. Ketchup was splattered everywhere. Kisaragi was lying on the ground, with no signs of life. While the guard was still dazed, not understanding what was happening, Moth had already slipped behind him. With a slash, the guy didn't even have time to react. Ketchup sprayed across the screen, and his body fell unconsciously. His fate was no different from Kisaragi's. Having dealt with the two, Moth quickly absorbed the gene codes and then had to leave because he didn't know when his comrades would return. They might have some tracking methods. To be safe, he decided to take a detour back to the nest. Returning to the nest, Moth used his super sensibility to check the surroundings. Everything was fine. He was safe. And now it was time to continue evolving. Moth's body began to transform. Disgusting mucus flowed from his head, enveloping his body. His whole body became more muscular. Moth found the sensation of transforming into another entity extremely strange. It was completely different from the times he had experienced before. The fluid was turning him into something that even he himself did not know. He wanted to open his eyes to see his form directly, but couldn't. The moment his body entered the cocoon, he completely lost control. Now he could only wait leisurely for the result. After some time, Moth's cocoon gradually cracked open. He slowly pushed his hand out of the cocoon. Not only had his body color changed, but his form and physique had also transformed. No longer an insect crawling on 4 legs. Moth now resembled a human, able to walk on 2 legs and having 2 arms. The incident with the guard and Kisaragi had been discovered. The captain's eyes darkened as he asked, "Head of the medical team, have you identified the cause of death?" The entire medical team had tried to investigate. From the preliminary examination results, the head of the research team died from an attack to the neck. The wound looks like it was caused by a small saw. To be more certain, a detailed examination is needed. To put it simply, an autopsy is required to know the exact time and cause. The head of the medical team spoke up, asking for the captain's opinion, but he too held his head, not knowing how to solve this problem. The captain slowly looked up and asked, "Head of the security team, how is the search for the suspect going?" The head of the security team reported, "We have checked all the security cameras on the ship, but there is nothing unusual. The most suspicious suspect is the remaining guard. He is currently locked up and being interrogated. Although he is the #1 suspect, according to the information we have, it seems it wasn't him. He has no motive for the crime either." After receiving the information, the captain showed a worried expression again. "Report to me immediately if you have any results." Suddenly, the captain turned and asked the researchers in the lab, "You all know what happened in the lab recently, don't you?" This question made every member of the lab team tremble. Like a threat, the captain told them that there was once a potential talent who had his brain removed while still alive for not listening to the head of the research team, and now it was floating in a tube. If that's what happened for not listening, what will those involved in this death receive? If you don't want to end up as just a brain getting shocked, you'd better come up with a plan. That statement not only terrified the research team, but also made the security team almost wet their pants. After hearing this, one member suggested, "What if we just say it was a lab accident?" But someone else refuted, "You have to think before you speak." Head of the orientation team. There were many researchers there. How could such a lie get through? An opinion from the research team was put forward. "How about this? We say it was an accident, died from food poisoning." But answering like that would be like putting everyone in a coffin. That if the head of the engineering team wants to be put in a coffin like that, then go by yourself. The head of the engineering team angrily lunged forward, choking the one who had just spoken, while the head of the orientation team also jumped in to punch the head of the security team. The ship was now nothing but a chaotic mess. Everything turned upside down. A stranger angrily slammed his hand on the table, telling everyone to be quiet. Conflict will only complicate things. Everyone stared blankly, looking to see who had just spoken. But this person ignored their gazes and turned to speak to the captain. "Captain, we are currently near planet C08. The captain wondered what this had to do with the current incident. The man continued, "C08 is the territory of the space dogs." He suspected that this incident was caused by those damn space dogs. The captain listened, scratching his chin, finding it plausible. The space dogs are cunning pirates who fly around the galaxy to attack and plunder. They are the sworn enemies of Megacorp. They are veterans of guerrilla warfare, so even veteran military ships have lost to them. A mediocre research ship like this wouldn't stand a chance against them. Therefore, an accident could easily happen in such situations. The captain thought to himself, if he reported that they were attacked by the space dogs, he could cover up the unexplained death of the head of the research team. This was indeed not a bad plan, but another problem arose. Currently, their weapons were no match for the space dogs. The man spoke up again. "There's no need to worry too much about this. I know some friends. I will contact them immediately." The captain had a headache. He didn't expect this guy to have connections with these space pirates. He directly asked the price he wanted. The number given was 100 million credits. The huge number made the captain angry, but he didn't dare to say it out loud. Not letting the captain bargain, the stranger explained, "Kisaragi Yujin is an existence that even the space dogs are wary of. They also have to take a risk, so that price is very reasonable." Out of options, the captain had to agree to that amount. In return, the man had better handle this matter carefully. The meeting ended there. The remaining work was handed over to the head of the risk management team, and the two bodies would be preserved until the space dogs arrived to be handed over to them later. Back to Moff, after evolving to the larval stage, he felt this body was truly refreshing. Also, now that he had a new body, his tactics should also change a bit. The previous tactic was to hide, to stay out of the enemy's sight, but the next one will be to survive and hunt, predicting a future drenched in tomato sauce right before his eyes. Moff brought up the system panel to see what his next objective was. It remained the same. The main objective was still to survive, but the status had now changed to larva. The Amoth species consists of 6 stages, so it has 5 evolutionary phases. First is hatching. Next is larva. Third is pupa, then pre-adult, adult, and finally, ascension. Reaching ascension is considered to have survived in space. In other words, it's like the end game. When an Amoth ascends in the game, all the secrets of its origin will be revealed, such as where they come from, what they are, whose gene code they have, and so on and so forth. However, reaching that ending is extremely difficult. Only about 20 people, including him, have ever seen the end of this game. After studying for a while, Moff now remembered that at this larval stage, he could unlock. Looking at the traits, it seems he will be of the physical enhancement type. Currently, there are no types that can be unlocked. He can only preview the special types. Moff pressed to take a look. Just as he predicted, he was about to reach the physical enhancement type. It was all thanks to the reinforced exoskeleton and acidic blood traits he got upon becoming a larva. The enhancement type is like a job class in some games. When the conditions are met, a suitable type will be unlocked and related abilities will get a bonus. The system panel showed Moff's stats. Mental enhancement was 1.5/3. He wondered why it was 1.5. 1 point was probably from the predator's instinct skill, but where did the 0.5 come from? He racked his brain about everything he had. From the cockroaches, the spider, and even the cat in his stomach. He had put everything in his mouth, not wasting a thing. Oh, he almost forgot there was still that Kisaragi. He had to flee before he could finish eating her. She was such a juicy morsel. It would be a damn shame to miss out. I wouldn't be able to sleep. sleep. Thinking this, Moff took action, once again going through the ventilation ducts. But it seemed a bit difficult with his current body size. After going a little further, he noticed something strange. Moff sniffed the foul stench of a dead body. He followed the scent, saliva drooling from his mouth, his eyes shining brightly as if he had just found a treasure. He had found the morgue, the place that was considered to be storing the delicious morsel named Kisaragi Yujin. At the morgue, an employee was sitting, working, and humming a song. "My dear, can you stay here?" When he suddenly smelled a foul odor somewhere nearby. He grimaced, stood up, and slowly walked inside to see where this shrimp paste-like smell was coming from. Suddenly his face turned pale at the sight before him. A huge gaping hole created by acidic liquid. Lost in his pointless wonderings, he didn't realize Moff was standing behind him. Seeing that the situation was not good, the young man was about to call security to see what had happened here. But it was too late. Moff's tail, as large as an elephant's trunk, attacked unexpectedly. With a tail over 18 centimeters long, what could withstand it? Ketchup splattered, and the employee was instantly done for without even a chance to react. Work done. Moff approached the place where Kisaragi's body was kept. Because she was a noble, even after she kicked the bucket, her body was preserved intact. No one on the spaceship had the authority to touch her corpse. Moff was about to grab Kisaragi's head and put it straight into his mouth, but he suddenly thought, "It's strange. I can slaughter people so ruthlessly without feeling any guilt. They say people must change to adapt to their environment. Could it be that since becoming an Moff, I've turned into a rotten murderer? Or was this brutal, deadly creature my true nature from the beginning? Well, thinking too much gives me a headache, and then I'll have to take 2 Panadol extra. Whatever is delicious gets priority. Just eat first." And so Moff devoured the main course. It was truly the most delicious meal since he got on the spaceship. Devouring each other has become the law of nature. The weak can only be at the bottom of the food chain. Moff understood that he had to slaughter to survive. This was the life an Moff had to go through and adapt to. Anyway, when you're poor, your body also rots and becomes a natural source of nourishment, which is a bit of a waste. Thinking about it more openly, Moff was just saving food. While eating happily, he suddenly bit into something, like a piece of iron. Spitting it out, he saw a strange object. Moff found this thing in Kisaragi's heart. He was quite curious about this object, not knowing what kind of machine it was, nor its purpose. Or, well, maybe she had a heart condition. A notification panel suddenly appeared, just as Moff predicted that Kisaragi had the mental attribute. Predator effect has been activated. Nervous system gene fragment has been obtained. Human nervous system attribute has been acquired. Of all the things he could have gotten, he got the nervous system. The Moff species can use psychic power without a nervous system. So to Moff, this thing was completely useless. Well, thinking positively, it's not a big deal. After all, it can fill up the attributes to unlock other types. As soon as he pressed use, nerve-like tentacles grew from Moff's back. Although quite useless, he found his own nervous system quite interesting. Who knows, maybe just like Predator's instinct, it could accidentally merge with another attribute and become useful. After finishing the main course, Moff now moved on to dessert. These guards had a milder taste. While eating, there was a sudden noise, which startled Moff. It's time for the guard's shift change. With his super senses, Moff could see everything clearly. They didn't have much reinforced armor on the ship. The person approaching was wearing the same uniform as the previous ones. The pharmacist, lying on the ground, covered in blood, would also have his shift changed. When the replacement arrived, they would surely notice something unusual in this room. Since this is the space age, they would probably immediately think that a monster had gotten onto the ship. And of course, the entire crew would hunt Moff. And right now, he wasn't strong enough to fight the entire crew at full strength. He needed to buy more time until he was stronger. Suddenly, a good idea popped into his head. Moff saw the smoke created by his acid and remembered this was the morgue with preservatives and chemicals for handling bodies. This was a good way to get through the crisis and harass the crew. It is known that Megacorp has no official capital, but there is still a place called the Capital, which is Earth, the current headquarters of Megacorp. 5 companies contributed to the formation of Megacorp, and they rule Earth as kings. Among those 5 clans, the Zujin clan originated from a land once called East Asia. The Zujin clan was originally just a small business in a country called Korea. All the land there is now Zujin territory. There are small aircraft and maglev trains for transportation. An artificial sun for the international ecosystem. The Zujin people and tens of millions of so-called subservient tools live in this place. In the Zujin territory, a middle-aged man was farming, but there was no sign of hardship. He looked extremely relaxed, and behind him, people were waiting for him. He slowly stood up, turned his head, and said, "I've kept you waiting, please come here." The old man behind him seemed to be an official. He nodded to allow the guard to approach and deliver the news. They had come to report about Kisaragi Zujin. The middle-aged man, still smiling brightly, asked, "My third daughter? What's wrong with Kisaragi?" The guard said with a serious expression, "The young lady's transmitter has been destroyed." Hearing this, the middle-aged man still didn't believe it. "Impossible. I didn't assign her any." "Troublesome missions," the guard replied. "The last signal was received near C08. The investigation shows this is the territory of the space dogs." The middle-aged man appeared thoughtful, then gently patted the young man's shoulder, then suddenly launched an attack, sending the guard on his way. Not stopping there, the man took the gardening sickle from before and struck repeatedly to make sure the guard was stone-cold dead. After finishing, the man told the group to clean everything up. He didn't need tools to answer unasked questions. He hated it when a subordinate answered a question meant for someone else. A tool is just a tool. The cost of raising Kisaragi Zujin was 10 billion credits, the same value as the latest model of warship. And I haven't even performed gene enhancement on her yet. So how could those pirates dare to lay a hand on her? Although this high-ranking man was angry, his face remained cold and unchanged. The man continued, "I wonder who had the guts to harm the precious jewel of the Zujin clan." The man thoughtfully scratched his chin and asked the butler. The ship Kisaragi was on. The captain was Samuel Zhu, right? The Samuel clan is also close to Titan. The Edgerton bastards must be very interested, but they didn't do it. The Edgerton leader is a coward. He doesn't have the guts to point a knife to have designs on the Zujin clan. He turned back and asked the butler, "What do you think about this?" The man bowed respectfully and replied, "Sir, it's suspected to be related to TNC." The high-ranking man's eyes suddenly sharpened. Great minds think alike. TNC and Edgerton seem to conflict over the rule of Jupiter, but in reality, they are in collusion because Edgerton's credits come from TNC. That snake probably wants to seize control before the council meeting. You think so too, don't you? The butler answered meekly, "Yes, sir." The TNC clan leader, Chamberlain, greatly covets the position of CEO, which is your position, master. He laughed loudly. "That's right, that son of a bitch. He's clearly targeting me." Laughing in anger, he suddenly fell silent and gave an order. "Inform everyone in the clan. I have a shadow guard near C08. Contact him and handle it. At the same time, bring Samuel Ayu and everyone related to that ship. Drag them all here." A terrifying expression appeared on his face. "Anyone who dares to touch my things will meet their end." Back on the spaceship, the group was trembling uncontrollably at the scene before them. The desiccated bodies had been discovered, and no one understood what had happened. Reportedly, smoke was detected inside, and upon inspection, a fire was found. At that time, the guards wanted to go inside to check what had happened, but they had to wait for the doctor, as only the doctor was allowed inside to perform the initial examination. But it was also strange. The guards didn't understand how a fire could start inside, not knowing where it came from. On this side, the doctor was examining, and seeing the ring on the hand, it seemed this was a member working overtime. His expression suddenly darkened, and he turned to ask the staff, "Are all the bodies here?" Without waiting for an answer, his face grew even darker as he said to the captain, "Captain, please gather all the team leaders here immediately. Something terrible has happened." The meeting was held with all the department heads present. The captain shouted in alarm, "What did you say? The bodies of the guard and the research team leader Kisaragi have disappeared? Are you absolutely sure?" The medical team leader explained, "I've checked over and over again. Only 2 bodies are missing, I'm certain. Not only that, looking at the amount of chemicals in the morgue, a fire might have occurred, but that's very unlikely. In other words, it seems like someone intentionally set the fire. Suspicions were pointed towards the unidentified alien creatures. But someone jumped up at that idea, and that no longer matters. The biggest problem is that Kisaragi's body is missing, And we also have to face the pirates at C-08. So the immediate task is to find that body by any means necessary. One department head still wanted to find the culprit first. This sent the captain into a rage, cursing continuously. Damn it, it's not my fault. If you're worried about retaliation, then you'd better cooperate properly. After hearing that, everyone became more orderly. The captain asked, "Risk management team leader, have you contacted them?" The team leader nodded. The urgent matter was probably to find the body and the person behind it. The captain clapped the security team leader on the shoulder. "You know what you need to do, right? You must catch the culprit by any means. If necessary, investigate all members of the crew. As long as you find the body and the culprit, I give you full authority to handle this." Moff was listening to the meeting from the ventilation duct above. He grinned with delight. Everything was going according to his plan. There was a way to hide his identity and confuse the enemy, and that was to use fire. Who would have known that mixing the chemicals in the morgue could cause a fire? After creating a mixture by combining chemicals, he added a few drops of his acidic blood, and then boom, a fire erupted, which easily decomposed the bodies and made all traces of him disappear. But what Moff didn't expect was that this group would contact those aliens. They were an extremely difficult bunch of trash to deal with. This captain really didn't know what he was doing and was only good at being reckless. Listening to the conversation, Moff also knew that the risk management team leader had left the meeting early. He was probably colluding with those pirates. Pirates are a diverse group of species, so Moff could collect many types of genes. However, in return, the number of fragments he could obtain from this research ship would decrease because it was about to be attacked. Perhaps he had to assess the pirates' level and evaluate them carefully. In the meantime, Moff also discovered that the equipment management team leader, the one who had strongly denied his existence on the ship earlier, seemed to be afraid. His face was covered in sweat, and he kept looking around as if to see if anyone was following him. After seeing no one, he immediately used his fingerprint to open the door to the cargo hold. Moff curiously followed to see what he was up to. Since he was the equipment management team leader, he could just walk in openly. No one would dare say anything, but why was he being so sneaky, as if he was doing something shady? Moff followed, but after a while, he lost the trail. His attention was drawn to a container. The man's trail disappeared there. The container was more secure than the others. Its walls were so thick that even Moff's super senses couldn't see through it. This made Moff even more certain that he was hiding something very important. His curiosity was piqued. Initially, he had only intended to target the medical team leader, but now that had changed. The next target would be this guy. After sneaking around doing his shady business, that team leader went to drink his sorrows away. As he drank, he thought to himself, these past few days he felt like he didn't exist at all. Why did I believe the words of that black market broker? I was lured by his words. He said he had obtained a rare item from an ancient ruin, and I believed him and bought it immediately, thinking I could sell it for a higher price. Everything was going smoothly until the day of the transaction, when I secretly transported the eggs. I never expected that one of them would hatch the day after. The team leader wished he had closed the door properly. Then that space monster wouldn't have disappeared. The mistake was his own, so he couldn't blame anyone. Just thinking about the captain finding out made his face drip with sweat. If that guy found out, this day next year would surely be the first anniversary of his death. The sadder he got, the more he thought, the more he drank. He didn't leave until the bar closed, staggering home. Still humming the famous song of some guy named Jack. As he walked, he sang, "My love, can you stay here?" Then suddenly he felt a chill down his spine. He turned around, but didn't see anyone. As soon as he turned his head away, that feeling appeared again. This time he spotted Moff's long tail. Fear enveloped him. He panicked and ran as fast as he could, hastily pressing for a room to call for help. But life is not a dream. He stumbled and fell to the ground. Life is truly not a dream. His hand was just inches away from the life-saving phone, but he couldn't reach it because Moff had caught up. Seeing his appearance, this team leader trembled, unconsciously backing away in fear. But behind him was a wall. There was no more room for him to retreat. Moff brought his face close to the man's and opened his mouth wide. And then, well, there was no after. That guy became an appetizer for Moff after the main course and dessert from earlier. In the team leader's room, Moff was rummaging through the place looking for something. He couldn't find what he was looking for, only alcohol. This guy was a real drunkard, spending a ton of time drinking at the bar, spending everything he earned. Moff thought to himself, perhaps the captain should thank him, because he had just eliminated someone who was wasting their salary and not doing any work. Even so, Moff still felt extremely annoyed because this guy was not only wasteful, but also messy. His room was disgustingly dirty. After searching for a while, he still couldn't find the guy's ID card. He turned to look at a picture of a girl in a bikini. She looked sexy, but perhaps in his monster form, he didn't feel the slightest bit moved. Under the table, there was a yellow notebook he hadn't checked yet. As soon as he picked it up, the guy's ID card fell out. Moff had finally found what he was looking for, along with the team leader's fingerprint. But before doing anything, he had to clean up this place a bit. Moff devoured the guy in an instant. Like a food reviewer, Moff rated this guy as not tasty at all. His body was just full of the smell of alcohol, ruining the original flavor. After cleaning up, Moff returned to the previous cargo hold with the ID card and fingerprint. Opening the door became incredibly easy. Stepping inside, Moff cheerfully went to find the secret that the guy had been sneakily hiding. The place was filled with freezers. Moff immediately thought this guy was a smuggler trying to make a profit. But what caught his attention the most were the move eggs. Among them, one had already hatched. He wondered if that was the egg he had emerged from. It turned out his appearance on this spaceship was because that team leader had brought him here. In the game, the starting point for an move was not a spaceship, but an unidentified wreck. Moff didn't know what had happened, but it seemed that after hatching, the original one had escaped from this container, but because it was too hungry, it died. And then when he connected to the game, he became it. And of course, life returned to this move. That was also why he felt extremely hungry on the first day, and even eating cockroaches felt delicious. A moment of silence for this original move. He was grateful to it because without it, he wouldn't be here now. But there wasn't much time. Now was the time to act like a space monster, not to have human-like emotions. Moff quickly ate all the remaining move eggs. This was a law of nature. The first one to hatch would eat all the remaining eggs, both for survival and to eliminate any competition. Although he ate all the eggs, the system panel didn't show anything, meaning Moff gained nothing from the Moff eggs. But that was okay, because there were still plenty of things to eat here. After a full meal, Moff only needed 2 more traits to achieve physical enhancement. To be honest, he felt a bit disappointed after devouring that Akasaraji. Instead of giving him mental power, he only received a useless nervous system. However, in return, this team leader gave him such a precious gift. He knew that in the game, there were traits that could only be obtained mid-game or late game, but he unexpectedly found it here. This would allow him to act more ferociously, and it wouldn't be long until the encounter with those space hounds. Moff told himself he had to be as strong as possible because he didn't know how dangerous they would be. One wrong step and it would be over. The goal Moff was aiming for was genetic material. No one in this universe could hear the screams in this space. The pitiful cries of this research ship and its crew would be completely buried in this dark abyss. At the Megacorp research ship's landing bay, someone called out to a colleague, "Hey Scott, it's time to eat. Let's go." But Scott still wanted to finish his work. There was a lot of work today. He might need to work overtime. Eating together, Scott started to complain, "Damn it, I still don't understand these maintenance orders. Why are they making us check the fighter jets?" His colleague Fincher gave a gentle reminder, but Scott continued to ramble on. "Am I wrong? Think about it. Fincher, I heard they're preparing to fight the metal gremlins." Fincher thought that was true. If they encountered the metal gremlins, they would be goners for sure. Scott didn't stop. He even revealed shocking information. The truth is, the metal gremlins are already on the ship. Fincher's face started to turn pale. "You know that strange smell in the air lately? That's the smell of the metal gremlins. Plus, a friend in the kitchen told me that since last week, 1 or 2 people have disappeared." Fincher immediately retorted, "Nonsense rumors. Since the 14th. But a colleague eating nearby chimed in, "I've heard it too." The team leader who went missing was from the supply management team, so the cargo hold manager was promoted to team leader. Fincher was startled, not believing it was true. He still wondered, even if someone went missing, why are the higher-ups keeping quiet and not saying anything? That's easy to explain. They're covering it up so the crew doesn't panic. Hearing this, Fincher stood up and said, "What does them being on this ship have to do with maintaining the fighter jets?" After saying that, he turned and left, not forgetting to leave behind the words, "What a bunch of idiots." Hearing this, Scott could only scratch his head, not knowing what to say. As scheduled, Scott had to work overtime at night. Fincher came to call Scott for a late-night snack. But because there was a lot of work, Scott couldn't go. He could only ask his colleague, "If you get synthetic water, buy me a bottle, okay?" Then Fincher left, leaving Scott alone to work. He complained, "I don't know if I can finish all this work today." While engrossed in repairing the warship, he heard a voice call out. Scott recognized it as Cameron's voice. He was busy working, only to be called out again. Scott was angry, thinking to himself, "I swear, if it's not something important, I'm going to punch him." He crawled out from under the warship, but there was no one around. Scott didn't understand what trick this guy was trying to pull, calling him and then disappearing. The call came again, originating from behind that door. Scott, without any suspicion, slowly walked in. The place was pitch black. Scott held a flashlight and walked forward. Cameron was nowhere to be seen, only a rotten smell all around. Suddenly, Scott tripped over a screw and fell to the ground. That's when he realized something was strange. Even with the flashlight on, this place was still very dark. So what was Cameron doing in the dark like this? Suddenly, Scott remembered the rumors from the gossip mill during lunch. His face began to darken. From out of nowhere, a monster appeared right behind Scott. By the time he realized it, it was too late. Scott's head was grabbed by a giant hand. It was none other than Moth. His cries for help echoed outside, but no one answered. Scott became a late-night snack for Moth. A moment later, Fincher returned with a few bottles of water. He called out to his colleague, but Scott didn't answer. Looking under the ship, he didn't see him there either. Fincher found it quite strange, because Scott never left during work hours. Scott's voice suddenly rang out, "I'm in the repair area." Fincher asked back, "Why did you go to the repair area again? The lights aren't even on. What are you really trying to do?" The voice from inside still echoed, "I need to rearrange a few things, help me." Fincher didn't mind helping. He quickly stepped inside. Inside was still pitch black. Fincher held his light and walked over, asking, "What are you doing?" Seeing the flashlight on the ground, Fincher intended to pick it up. As he bent down, blood dripped from above. He felt something wet on his back. Thinking the ship was leaking, Fincher touched it to see what it was. Seeing his crimson hand, Fincher immediately realized it was blood. He didn't understand what was happening in this place. Suddenly, Scott appeared, but with a body that was no longer intact. Fincher looked up, startled, and then he too quickly became a meal for Moth. Moth then slowly sat down to enjoy his delicious meal and exclaimed, "Am I talented at fishing?" The transformation skill is really too convenient. Among the creatures that the supply manager tried to bring onto this ship, there were also larvae of something called redworms. This is a species of giant desert worm that only lives on planets with desert surfaces. It has the ability to replicate the sounds made by other creatures. For that reason, they can even hunt in the most extreme environmental conditions. It seems they have evolved in a way that is beneficial for hunting other creatures. It was really a good thing that Moth ate the larvae of this redworm species and obtained their gene fragments. But the limitation of this is that the version it provides is a lower tier version than its original form. Moth can only imitate the voice of the last creature he ate, but at least it's an extremely useful skill at the moment. Moth planned to change the menu tomorrow. He would devour a few members of the cooking team. After eating, he intended to return to his nest to rest, but Moth suddenly remembered the omit larva in the slime form. He had named it number 26. Changing his mind, Moth would go there for a visit before returning to his nest. In a ventilation duct, before they even saw each other, number 26 sensed him and greeted him. Moth was quite surprised, as he didn't think the telepathic organ could be used like this. He could communicate with other creatures through brainwaves. Moth greeted number 26 back. Number 26, with a sad voice, said, "Hello, so hungry today, food." Moth noted its vocabulary has increased a lot since last time. Could the chemical injected into number 26 have an effect that even a veteran gamer like him didn't know about? Moth replied, expressing his apology because he couldn't bring it food right now. Number 26 seemed quite disappointed, but this was necessary because the passage to the laboratory was now very dangerous after a series of mysterious disappearances. The security team leader had increased the protection level of the laboratory to the maximum. The ventilation duct areas above the laboratory, which were previously safe, had now also become very dangerous. So even though he wanted to help, he was powerless and couldn't bring food to number 26. All Moth could do was sit and talk with it to ease its sadness. Helpless, Moff said goodbye with a rather sad expression. He hoped that number 26 would try to endure a little longer. If he could evolve to the pupa stage, he could definitely help it. But the problem was the conditions for evolving into a pupa were too strict. To evolve, Moff had to destroy and absorb 100 members of each of 2 intelligent species. On this ship, there were only humans, so evolving into a pupa was completely impossible. There were also pirates, but Moff didn't know much about them. Lost in thought, Moff suddenly overheard the risk management department leader talking to someone. He was reporting the entire situation to the person on the other end and informing them about the incident where Yujin Kisaragi had died here, and also that the ship, as planned, was heading straight for planet C08. Moff watched from the side. He had previously thought this guy was just a brute, but it turned out he was a cunning old fox. He was the one who instigated the captain, but from the recent conversation, it was clear he was plotting something. Moff wanted to wait and see what was behind that mysterious curtain. Cut to the captain, who was furious. He cursed out the team leaders. The head of security, he couldn't even handle that one simple thing. How many times have you apologized? We've only known that bastard for 2 days, and to this day, there's still no sign of him. Yet the head of security couldn't explain it at all. Nothing had happened to the surveillance cameras and the guards he had arranged. The captain angrily turned to the ship's management team. How many people on the ship have gone missing so far? The information indicated that, including the managers of the supply department, the total was 8 people. 7 had gone missing after the head of the research department died. The captain didn't understand why the security department still hadn't caught the culprit. This made him suspect that if this guy wasn't an idiot, he must be cooperating with the culprit to screw him over. Moff watched the meeting from the air duct, chuckling. Unfortunately for them, the culprit was right here. In the heat of the moment, the head of the risk management department spoke up. I think what the head of security said is all true. The captain was quite angry to hear that. He continued, I have conducted a thorough inspection and can prove that the head of security has truly done his best. The captain's anger grew. He did his best, but still couldn't catch the culprit, so there's no excuse for this mistake. The head of the risk management department continued to speak up for his colleague. I can explain it by human standards. A human cannot escape while being surrounded on such a large scale. Even if the metal gremlin appearing on this ship is just a rumor, the thing that attacked us could be an unidentified entity. After those words, Moff felt the atmosphere in the meeting room change completely. Another team leader felt something was not right. There was no shortage of escaped lab creatures, and the result was always that they couldn't escape from them. Suddenly, the head of the risk management department mentioned the cold room, as everyone knows. The freezers in the supply department's warehouse, they were all left empty. Who knows what used to be in there? Moff above also felt a sting. Perhaps he needed to act more carefully if he didn't want to be discovered. The captain still didn't care about this because they hadn't found any trace of it. The head of the risk management department didn't hesitate and pointed straight at the ceiling. There's still one place we haven't searched, and that is the air ducts. The entire air duct system of the ship, it's wide enough to move through. Moff now felt quite agitated. This Arnold guy was a major concern. Perhaps he had to deal with him as quickly as possible. The meeting below continued. If everything was as Arnold said, then it would be easy for them. Now, they just needed to capture it and hand it over to the noble capital, and everything would be resolved. But Arnold didn't think so. Even if the truth proved that the monster killed the head of research, the capital's nobles would never forgive them. As for the pirates, they were forced to fight them. To win a battle, the internal situation needs to be under control. And to keep everyone on this ship safe, our top priority is to deal with that monster first. The captain got straight to the point. Manager of the risk management department, how many soldiers do you need in total? The number was given. I need a total of 6/8 of the squads to check the air ducts. The condition was met immediately. As long as he could bring back good news, it was fine. Moff heard this and quickly slipped away, both for safety and to find a combat strategy. He knew this was a battle that couldn't be avoided. With Arnold's personality, it was very predictable that he would choose to check the air ducts first. And not only that, the ducts had been sealed very tightly. Even if Moff left his nest, he had nowhere else to go. The corridors were now equipped with cameras, and the air ducts were now unusable. This was the moment to make an important decision. Should I run or should I fight? Moff thought for a long time, but still couldn't come up with an answer. He recalled the image of Arnold in the meeting, an incredibly annoying guy. This made Moff furious. Because of him, he could neither advance nor retreat. In the end, Moff decided to fight. He would show the human race that their choice to confront the Moff species was a mistake. He would teach them what ignorance is and what hell in space is. Moff activated his supersensory ability. It began to quickly analyze every nook and cranny of the ship, the entire structure of the research vessel, and even the location and movement of the enemy. If you think about it, this ship moving through deep space is like a living organism, and Moff is like a parasite infecting a brain made of inorganic matter. Because he knew what was happening on the ship as well as to its master, Captain Samuel and the team leader were gathering. Arnold would also be there to command. In addition, he also detected the movement of the armed soldiers. Just as he predicted, they were splitting into teams and entering from two directions. After sketching out a diagram of their course of action, he would adjust his plan. And now it's time to greet the guests. The entire ARM team was receiving movement orders from the control room. Everyone was ready and in position. If anything suspicious is detected, report it to the control room immediately. Arnold thought to himself, that monster, it might have also eliminated Koki Saraji. That should have been my job. His eyes were sharper than ever. The plan continues, but we need to eliminate as many variables as possible. There should be no surprises before Koshi Hyunayu gets here. The monster will definitely meet its end today. The ARM team was still following the control room's instructions, but the route seemed quite winding. Arnold reminded everyone to move. Carefully. Suddenly, Arnold noticed something unusual. Camera B3 is still not moving. Tell them to check it. The information was immediately relayed. B3, check the camera status. The B3 team responded, the camera is fine. The order was given again, telling B2 to go back to B3 behind them and proceed. Together, B2 received the order and acted. But as B2 approached B3, piercing screams rang out. Even the people sitting in the control room heard them. A report came in from Team B2. The space monster has appeared. Hearing this, Arnold's face was covered in sweat. He hadn't expected this situation either. Contact with B2 was lost. The camera couldn't see anything. The team leaders started to panic and repeatedly asked the communications officer, what has happened? And when they received no answer, the question was directed at Arnold. But he ignored them, still lost in his own fearful thoughts. A soldier in mid-grade reinforced armor couldn't even respond. Even a skilled assassin wouldn't find it that easy. He had underestimated that monster, thinking it was just a dangerous wild beast. Who knew it was stronger than predicted? Arnold hastily issued an order. Communications officer, inform everyone. If you see anything move, shoot immediately. B3 will join B1. Both will search for B2. The order was given. But Arnold felt no peace of mind. At this rate, they would be slowly eliminated one by one. As B3 was about to reach B1, Team B1 detected some strange sounds. They requested the control room to identify what it was. They felt something was approaching. They couldn't confirm exactly because there was a three-way junction ahead. B1 continued to report, don't worry, it's the sound of B3. I can hear B3's voice now. The communications team leader heard this and breathed a sigh of relief. But not long after, bad news came in, shaking the entire control room. B3 has been captured by the enemy. Arnold could no longer sit still. He went to the control console, taking command of the team himself. This is the captain. Explain the situation in detail. But there was no answer because the incident happened so fast that the entire B1 team couldn't identify it. Arnold couldn't control himself and cursed out the armed soldiers. How could you not see anything when it was right in front of you? Angry but helpless, he threw his headset to the ground. His face darkened and he fell back in his own thoughts. No way, it's impossible. How could you not notice when you were right next to each other? And neither B1 nor B3 appeared on camera unless they were deliberately avoiding filming the monster. Suddenly, Arnold realized something was wrong. He contacted B1 again. This is the captain. B1, state your name and rank. Seeing no response from the other side, Arnold repeated himself. I repeat, B1, state your name and rank immediately. A chilling voice suddenly came from the other end. You were trying to catch me? At the same time, the camera screen was smashed to pieces by a foot. A team leader fell to the ground in fear. As for Arnold, he was stunned for a moment, then went crazy, his blood boiling at the challenge from an unknown space monster. As for Moff, it was just as planned. First, he would deal with Team B. and taking a hint from their communications, his tactic of disrupting the opponent's communication with his wavelength would be effective. Because of the wavelength he transmitted, B3's rear equipment was scrambled, and B3 had to split up to repair the equipment. With just that, Moff could easily act. Everything after that went smoothly. The first meal of the day was pretty delicious. No kidding. Next to be dealt with was Team I. Moff used his supersensory ability to see where they were. He easily saw the armed soldiers. Now that they knew the news, they had all become highly alert. This was also as Moff predicted. Usually, Team B knew nothing about him, so they would let their guard down. But when things were exposed, the other side would be twice as cautious. Perhaps he would change his tactics. Moff stood waiting at a three-way junction in the ducts. Team A would definitely pass through here, and that's when he would act. This time, Moff would play on the information they received. Knowing too much is not always a good thing. Sometimes it's poison. The entire team A saw a junction ahead and reported it. The control room confirmed the information. Arnold also reminded them, I will repeat it again. The enemy can mimic human voices. If you hear a human voice, you must open fire. Immediately, as soon as he finished, a cry for help was heard. The whole team immediately opened fire, just as Arnold had instructed. Laser beams were fired straight at Moff, but luckily he was fast and managed to dodge. The control room also confirmed it was the space monster. So Team A slowly advanced to close the distance and eliminate it. But somehow, Moff had already slipped behind one of them. When the team realized it, he had already been taken hostage. The control room saw this and ordered the other two to fire, but seeing their comrade being used as a human shield, they hesitated because if they fired, their comrade would also be wiped out with the monster. The higher-ups in the control room didn't care that much. They angrily ordered them to open fire immediately. A series of laser beams were fired, yet Moff was still able to dodge them and escape. But the armed security guard A3 was not so lucky. He was critically injured and needed immediate treatment. This meant being eliminated from this game. A1 and A2 requested emergency treatment for their dying comrade. The request was approved by the control room. But before the treatment could be carefully completed, the control room hastily ordered the remaining two to continue the mission of hunting the monster, leaving A3 to recover there on his own. An angry guard had to exclaim, "You damn monster! If I catch you, I'll tear you in half." Suddenly, they saw a bloodstain on the ground and guessed that Moff had been hit and injured. They shivered and exclaimed, "How horrible! I can't believe even its blood is corrosive enough to melt through metal. I don't know what kind of monster this is." The hunt continued, but the deeper they went, the narrower the passage became. There was no other way. They asked the command room for permission to inject an enhancement drug into their bodies to eliminate the enemy more quickly. The command room immediately agreed to the request, and then the enhancement drug was injected into their bodies. Blood vessels bulged in his eyes. Pain flooded his body, causing the guard to collapse to the ground, his body trembling uncontrollably. He punched the ground hard. Because of this monster, they had to endure such bone-deep pain, they would definitely take the life of this rotten monster. They slowly advanced inside. In the middle of the passage was a large hole that had been corroded by acid, but the enemy was nowhere to be seen. The information was reported to the command room. Based on their judgment, the monster might have gone down the corridor. Report the specific location so we can proceed with the inspection. Before they could finish reporting the location, somehow Moff had appeared behind them. As fast as lightning, Moff lunged. The guard was prepared and immediately turned around, firing continuously at Moff. But he still couldn't match the super terrifying speed of the space monster. Moff easily dodged, got close and grabbed the other guy's head. The man's whole body was thrown hard onto the floor. Seeing the monster appear, the remaining man wasn't calm enough to handle it. He reacted reflexively, again firing a series of laser beams at Moff. Ignoring his comrade in front, seeing that the gun was ineffective, this guy decided to use a physical attack. He rushed forward to land a powerful punch on Moff, but his speed was still too slow. Moff dodged with ease, then ran off right before his eyes. No matter how angry the guard was, he couldn't do anything to him, weaving through the ventilation duct. These guards were much stronger than Moff thought, even if they didn't inject the enhancement drug into their bodies. Facing 2 or 3 of them at once was still quite a struggle. Perhaps he had to change his plan. He couldn't use tricks to deceive this group anymore. He had to find another way. Suddenly, a good idea appeared in Moff said. The first guard who was injured, after being treated, was not dead yet. He was resting when he heard a strange noise. He opened his eyes to see what was happening, his whole body trembling uncontrollably, because Moff, like a thief, was peeking from behind the wall. When he saw no one, he darted like lightning straight to the guard. This guy was too scared to say anything, and Moff, without needing many words, directly pinned him down and devoured him on the spot. Despite the praise, screams of pain, helplessly becoming a meal for the space monster. Just as planned, he deliberately wanted the control room to see the recent scene clearly. Then he smashed the camera on the guard's head. The signal to the control room also disappeared. Moff did this on purpose, so they would realize that A3 was ambushed and would inform the remaining one. As if divinely predicted, the remaining guard, upon hearing the news, immediately returned to where his comrade was attacked. He asked if his comrade was okay, but was met with only silence. There was no other way. He had to get closer to check on his comrade's condition, but he shook him and shook him, yet still, no answer. The situation was extremely critical. Without needing to report to his superiors, he was about to apply medical treatment to his comrade right away. But from A3's stomach, a tail suddenly pierced straight through his neck. He fell back in pain, losing his ability to fight. Moff then crawled out from inside A3's body. Before the surprised eyes, accompanied by the fear of this last guard, he tried to crawl away to escape. But with that crawling speed slower than a turtle's, how could he escape? Moff's hand held his head back. The helmet fell off, revealing a face of extreme pain. Moff looked straight at his prey and said with relish, "You will make a tasty morsel for me." Moff gripped the other's head tightly and then pulled it off forcefully, followed by a scene of ketchup splattering everywhere. Moff didn't destroy the camera on the helmet. Currently, he couldn't hear any sound from the communication line, but he was sure the crew was very scared. Because the scene of the ketchup-like splatter had just been witnessed by everyone, chaos erupted in the control room. They didn't know what that monster was. It was too scary. If this continued, they would all be butchered. Arnold, seeing that scene, was also frozen on the spot. Moff had almost won this time. Even if they discovered his actions through the surveillance cameras, they couldn't stop his next moves. He was quite curious about how the control room would react now that they knew about the existence of a space monster. Moff had only eliminated 6 lives. By his estimate, their forces consisted of about 90 armed soldiers and crew members. After discovering his existence on this spaceship, they would certainly not sit still and let him come and butcher them. Although this ship lacked active defense systems, the handheld weapons with such a large number of troops were still a great threat to him. With high-damage plasma weapons, it could cleave a target in 2 at any time. Moff thought to himself, he must act very carefully. A plasma weapon is a dangerous weapon that uses light beams to cause an enormous amount of damage. It is only equipped on warships in space. That weapon is mainly used to attack enemy ships or armored tanks on the ground. Due to its great destructive power and heavy weight, it is impossible for one person to move with this heavy weapon. To be more optimal, this weapon has been refined. It has a smaller, handheld version, making it more mobile. Of course, being smaller means the damage is also reduced, but it has been equipped for elite soldiers in combat spacecraft. Equipping this weapon also has many limitations due to its high cost. A mid-range plasma weapon is the perfect choice for raids in space. Whether this ship had that dangerous heavy weapon or not, Moff still couldn't guess. While moving through the ventilation duct, he suddenly stopped. Through the gap, Moff saw a whole team of soldiers walking back and forth on patrol. It seemed they had switched to high alert mode. They wanted to find the traces he left behind, and from there, quickly come up with a plan to deal with him. But that strictness and high alert was precisely the opportunity for Moff to act. While the soldiers were concentrating in one place, he would move to the command room. Eliminating some of these leaders would cause panic among the remaining subordinates. Above all, the most important goal was to butcher that guy Arnold. Moff felt that this man's existence was a great threat to him. Moff quickly reached the command room. As soon as he arrived, he heard voices from below. The manager said, "Where did that monster come from? And what species is it? Its bloodlust is truly terrifying." Arnold spoke up to explain, "On the list of monsters in the research lab, there's one species that has not been verified. It could be that one." Receiving an unsatisfactory answer, the captain spoke as if shouting at Arnold, "How can you say something like that? Now that it has butchered so many members of the crew, you still haven't taken any decisive action to deal with it?" Moff, eavesdropping from above, also realized that the bald man with no hair was the commander of. This ship, in space, people and equipment are the lifeblood that maintains the ship's operation. Because corporations want to cut costs on maintaining these ships, one of these two factors is often reduced. The captain felt extremely annoyed. If they had more advanced equipment, this matter could have been controlled simply. Now that monster was running even more rampant, and they still had no specific countermeasure. Arnold was truly a cause for concern. From what he had observed, he realized that Moth was an extremely dangerous species, with high intelligence, and furthermore, the ability to mimic human voices to deceive crew members. The captain was still not satisfied with that little bit of information, but Arnold was different. In such a chaotic situation, having a little information was better than having nothing. From this information, they would be better prepared to guard against the monster. Arnold had also sent soldiers on patrol to check possible hiding places, but now he wanted one more condition from the captain. Arnold wanted permission to use the plasma guns in the armory. Hearing this, the captain's eyes widened in surprise at the proposal. The other team leaders also disagreed and said loudly, "Are you crazy? That weapon is very important to the ship. We can only use it when we encounter space pirates. This is inside the ship. You can't use that weapon here." Even though this ship is a warship, its equipment is not enough to withstand the destructive power of plasma. If a plasma gun is used inside the ship, it is very likely to lead to irreparable damage. From a noisy debate below, Moff confirmed that this ship indeed had plasma guns. In addition, he also saw that it seemed the command team had not yet reached a consensus. If that was the case, he would take that opportunity to cause some small disturbances to make them even more terrified, knowing that Moff's primary target was always Arnold. But this guy was too far from his position to act. The person closest to him was Jay, the old biological researcher, the one who brutally tortured number 26 every day. This was probably the easiest prey. No sooner said than done. Moff broke the iron grate of the air duct, and he lunged down before their astonished eyes. The guy was still standing there cluelessly, and by the time he realized it, Moff's huge mouth had chomped straight onto his head. All the captains who saw this scene were terrified, scrambling to run for their lives. But how could they escape from Moff as it pounced, easily finishing off two more? Cries for help echoed throughout the room, the air filled with the smell of fear and the stench of fresh blood. A man at the command radio was reporting to the armed guard unit when Moff immediately shoved its long tail into this man's mouth, making him unable to speak ever again. Suddenly, several laser beams shot at Moff. It turned out that Arnold hadn't fled, but was using a weapon to attack it. But it was a pity for him. How could those simple guns cause any damage to this sturdy body? It's true that when scared, people will grab anything they can get their hands on. Now, the next target was this Arnold. As it was about to act, suddenly, images of the future appeared in Moff's head. It had a duel with this Arnold, and although it injured him, it seemed Moff also had to pay a rather heavy price. Moff broke out in a cold sweat at the recent images. That guy had a plasma pistol. It had almost carelessly walked into danger. With just one direct hit from a plasma beam, it would surely be severely injured. Moff thought the situation was favorable, but who would have thought it would turn so quickly? Arnold frowned, slightly surprised that Moff suddenly stopped moving. From a state of panic, he suddenly became strangely confident and calm, reaching inside his jacket to pull out the plasma gun. The captain, along with the team leader standing outside, also felt alarmed seeing the plasma gun as it was a weapon of destruction. Back to Arnold. He confidently pointed the gun straight at Moff and said, "Very good. It's good that I ran into you here. Although I don't know your identity, I think you understand what I'm saying. For a monster with intelligence like you, you're just like my master Sihian." Arnold pulled the trigger. A laser beam shot out, truly a weapon of destruction. The metal on the ship it touched was left with a hole. Moff sensed the danger and started to flee without daring to look back. Arnold was determined to destroy Moff because his scheme could not be interfered with by anything. Moff was now hiding behind a small wall, panting, feeling that the situation was not good at all. Facing that gun, it felt its life was in serious danger. Although the situation could still change if it could take advantage of it, then the winner would surely be it. Moff didn't care about the master or the scheme in Arnold's words, but the last survivor in this battle would definitely be it. Bears, lions, and wolves are carnivorous animals that we know. They are considered typical animals that make humans fearful. However, these animals always have fatal weaknesses. They will act cautiously when facing something unfamiliar. warrior. By nature, they are predators, but they are also very timid. Even itself, now in the role of an apex predator, had hidden fears within. Regardless of whether the opponent is strong or weak, one must always be cautious and wise to make the most accurate decisions. Back to the battle. Moff had just dodged a shot from the plasma gun. It had to praise this Anold. He was truly a talented leader. With its super senses, Moff could feel that when Anold confronted a dangerous monster like it, his heartbeat didn't waver at all. Earlier, he might have just pretended to be scared to make it careless. Then he would wait for an opportunity to find its weakness. He might also have studied it quite thoroughly through specimens and footage. He had guessed that it had senses and intelligence superior to a normal predator. And now, this Anold was playing the role of a hunter, threatening its life. From the aura emanating from Anold's body, Moff confirmed that this was a cunning and experienced hunter. While dodging bullets, it looked for a hiding place, which was why after a series of shots were fired, Moff still hadn't been hit. The captain saw Anold frantically firing. He warned, "Commander, don't forget this is inside a spaceship. Firing recklessly like that could destroy a lot of important equipment." Anold would be more mindful, but the most important thing was to finish off this monster first. Anold moved closer to Moff's hiding place to get a better shot, but missed again. He was angry because Moff had been running nonstop. As for Moff, it was still cautiously observing the situation. This Anold was quite clever. Seeing that he couldn't take on Moff alone, he had called the armed soldiers to the control room. Moff also knew Anold's intention. He was stalling for time, waiting for reinforcements to arrive, and then he would launch an all-out attack to capture it. He must be doing this to protect the captain and the key members on the ship in this room. This guy is really cunning. Moff realized it needed to do something quickly before the armed soldiers arrived. From the start, Moff had grabbed a fire extinguisher. It wondered what help it could be in this critical situation. The safety pin of the fire extinguisher was pulled out by Moff. It sprayed the gas straight into the middle of the room, making the place foggy and obscuring everyone's vision. No one could see anything. Anold remained extremely calm. He had been playing this kind of childish trick since he was a kid. Although he couldn't see, Anold's shots were still incredibly accurate, aimed straight at Moff. The whole room became extremely chaotic. Everyone was afraid of becoming prey for the monster. Anold angrily reminded them, "You idiots, are your weapons just for decoration?" Just after reminding the armed soldiers, he turned back and had lost track of Moff. It had hidden in the white smoke and was slowly assassinating them one by one. Although this Anold had very good perception, this time he made a big mistake. Because no one could see anything, they could only communicate by voice. However, Moff had the ability to mimic voices, making the chaos even more chaotic, and then eliminated them one by one. The blonde-haired man was deceived by the voice, spinning around, not knowing who to trust. He received an order to shoot straight ahead. Hearing this, the man closed his eyes and fired blindly. The result was that the shot went straight into the arm of Anold. Before he could even compose himself, although Anold was angry, when he sensed Moff behind him, he immediately turned around and fired a series of shots at Moff. But with an injured arm, those shots were no longer completely accurate, and Moff easily dodged them. Moreover, it charged straight at Anold. Using the wings on its back, it flew high up, then swooped down. With a thud, Anold's head was no longer on his neck. His body then fell unconsciously. The most dangerous person on this ship had been eliminated. The blonde-haired man who had just accidentally shot Anold saw the scene. He was trembling, not calm enough to pull the trigger, and even if he shot Moff with that weapon, it wouldn't cause any damage. Moff swept past, scaring him to death. In Moff's mouth was the meal it had just found, and then Moff walked past as if no one was there, ignoring the guy standing there, frozen to the spot. Moff quickly climbed into the ventilation duct to return to its nest. It had intended to chop them all into small pieces to eat, but there wasn't enough time. For safety, it needed to flee immediately. The critical situation passed. The captain, who had been hiding in a corner in fear, was now raising his voice at the guards. "What took you so long to get here?" The guards could only bow their heads and apologize. The captain left, as further blaming would be pointless. The captain ordered the guards to clean up this place immediately. After a while of cleaning up, the identification of casualties was complete. Everyone had died, except for Representative Captain Way of the research team. He was in the recovery room. Luckily, he was immune to the monsters. Neurotoxin, but his senses of sight, smell, and taste were permanently damaged. Even if he survived, he would have to live his whole life in a culture tube. The captain's worried face was evident. As the bad prognosis came in, the representative captain of the medical team offered an opinion. How about you surrender to the space pirates? The captain didn't even listen and turned to walk away. You bastard, you just want to save yourself. Don't follow me and keep nagging. Do your job properly. But the situation was indeed bad. The captain worried, not knowing how many people had died in the end. A series of key figures were all gone, from the research team captain to the captains of the engineering team, medical team, cooking team, navigation team, and risk management team. At this rate, the ship he commanded would surely not survive the battle with the space pirates. The captain thought to himself, should I just abandon everything and run? Suddenly, there was a new discovery. 2 guards had accidentally found Arnold's gun. As if striking gold, the captain ordered the 2 to bring the gun. To him, looking at the gun, its energy level was still at 60%. Although it looked a bit damaged for self-defense, it was still fine. However, the overwhelming anxiety remained. The captain knew that the terrifying monster was still alive somewhere on this ship, and the space pirates would arrive the day after tomorrow. His head ached, not knowing what to do next. Back to Moff's side, it had completely eliminated the ringleaders on this ship. That Samuel's position as captain was just for show, so it wasn't worried about him at all. The important task now was to expand its own nest. Currently, Moff could build nests in 3 places in total, along with the nest in the cold room. It could make 2 more. The top priority was the cafeteria. Eating is the most important part of survival. It could cut off their supply by contaminating the food. Next was the armory, where the plasma destroyer gun was kept. That weapon could finish it in an instant, so this had to be dealt with immediately. Finally, the laboratory, which contained a large number of genetic samples and selenium. But the problem was that only 10% of the traits could be obtained from those specimens. With just selenium, Moff could utilize the pupa skills. To prepare for the confrontation with the space pirates or potential future opponents, it decided to get right to it. Moff would make nests in the cafeteria and the laboratory, because those 2 were necessary. As for that heavy plasma gun, it would just run into the armory and steal it. As it walked, Moff thought to itself, it didn't intend to use that gun at first, but Arnold's words keep bothering me. I don't know what that person named Zujin he followed has done, but he might come with the space pirates or be hiding among them. Nothing is scarier than an enemy with an unknown identity. Moff was determined to collect everything it could get on this ship. As it reached the ventilation duct of the laboratory, number 26 greeted Moff. From its tone, Moff felt that number 26 was quite cheerful today. It asked number 26, no drug experiments today? Number 26 replied curtly, yeah, none. That's right. With an alarm situation like this, who would have time to do experiments? They're probably all hidden in their rooms. Moff hesitated slightly, not knowing if it should risk going outside. It deliberately walked past the alarm device, and the siren blared. But after waiting for 30 minutes, still no one came. In that case, Moff no longer needed to sneak around this narrow duct. Moff jumped down from the ventilation duct. Seeing number 26, it asked, long time no see, huh? Judging by your color, you look healthy. But Moff felt that if it left number 26 in there, it would starve to death. It wondered whether to bring it along. Because of their characteristics, bubble slimes are not picky eaters like other species and are also immune to toxins, so keeping it in the nest or taking it along. We're both fine. Moff asked number 26, do you want to go outside? Number 26 still didn't know where Moff wanted to take it. When it heard Moff say it would take number 26 outside the laboratory, the bubble slime immediately agreed. And so Moff used its iron head, ramming its head straight into the test tube, then gently carried number 26 outside. Number 26 said thank you, while Moff did not forget the task it needed to do. From Moff's mouth spewed a series of toxic acids. In just a few short minutes, the entire room was covered in a layer of bright green toxic acid. This place had become Moff's nest. It was certain that like this, the researchers would definitely not be able to use this laboratory anymore. It had used a bit too much energy just now and felt hungry, so Moff grabbed the brain next to it and devoured it. It thought it would be delicious, but it turned out to taste terrible. Instead of enjoying the taste, perhaps it should focus on the nutrition. While enjoying a light meal, with its super senses, Moff realized someone was approaching, a total of 2 individuals. One had a rather steady gait, so he was probably a guard, while the other might be a researcher. This was no different from delivering fat to a cat's mouth. An entire team wasn't even enough to defeat Moff. So these 2 were destined to be its dessert. The 2 of them didn't know the danger lurking behind the laboratory door. As soon as they opened the door, they were startled speechless. The research lab was destroyed. They even thought the toxic acid was the root of some plant. The guard seemed to sense Moff's presence. He raised his gun, firing continuously at Moff, but the truth had proven that these ordinary laser beams had no effect on it. Very quickly, this man was officially killed by that sharp tail. He died without even being able to believe he was defeated so easily. After dealing with this one, the next target was the researcher. This man fell to the ground in fear, backing away while begging for his life. Moff showed no mercy, directly grabbing the man's head. Just as it was about to send him to join the guard, number 26 spoke up. Moff understood from his friend's words that this man was one of the ones who experimented on number 26. It was angry that its torturer was right in front of it. Moff would give the chance for revenge to number 26. The man trembled, still not understanding why Moff didn't finish him off, but the answer came immediately. The slime leaped forward, enveloping his head like a scaly helmet, suffocating him until the man could no longer breathe and slowly passed away. Moff looked to the side, who was more pathetic, the guard who was instantly skewered, or the researcher who was in agony as his head slowly dissolved. But the process didn't matter to Moff now. That guy got what he deserved. While feasting on the spoils, suddenly the system appeared with a series of notifications. Moff smiled with delight. It was lucky this time. It had achieved its goals sooner than it thought. The system announced, a customizable sample currently exists. Unlock the physical enhancement sample. Moff had destroyed over 500 specimens, but only obtained 3 traits. But getting a few useful traits was enough to make it happy. While still wondering whether to unlock this trait right away, Moff didn't want to hesitate any longer and pressed agree. Its body began to evolve. The skeleton in its body grew, making Moff's form larger. Its exterior looked as if it were wrapped in a layer of steel. Even number 26 felt that Moff was significantly larger. Number 26 was curious, not understanding how Moff had become so big so quickly. It gave a basic explanation to number 26. The slime was quite intelligent, which surprised Moff a little. By the way, looking at its newly evolved body, Moff felt much stronger and more solid, as if it had evolved from a leopard to a rhinoceros. Its weight had also increased. Its arms and legs were encased in sturdy biological armor, and its legs were much bigger thanks to the leg enhancement. Moff curiously checked its own traits. This time, the 3 traits Moff received were natural recovery, saw tentacle, and venomous organs. The most special was natural recovery, which could be combined with vigorous vitality. Everything was very good, but facing specialized weapons was still too much for Moff. Currently, it only had 1 sample ready for specialization, the neural enhancement sample, which was quite useless to Moff. In Amoeba, sample collection is unlimited, but the requirement to collect and create a new sample will be more than double the normal. For example, if it had obtained the neural enhancement sample first, the requirement to obtain the physical enhancement sample would increase from 10 to 20. Moff would usually be more concerned about the timing of collecting new samples, but in such a difficult situation, it had to be this way. It would unlock it later. For now, it would try out the new traits first. The saw tentacle trait. From the palm of Moff's hand, a saw blade grew, just like its flexible tail. It looked quite fragile at a glance, but if upgraded with physical enhancement, it would be very powerful. Next was venomous organs. A dense poisonous gas emanated from Moff's body. From that, Moff could create spores that could produce acid. With this ability, Moff could turn this ship into a fortress in the sky. This would help it fight against the strong enemies to come. After checking everything, it was time for the next location. The destination was the cargo bay. It wondered how those people would react when they saw it. Would they cry or laugh? Perhaps they would run away or stand and fight bravely. The whole ship began to descend into chaos, the sound of footsteps running everywhere. They warned each other, "Run, that thing is coming. Hurry up, we can't wait any longer." Just as two more people ran inside, the room's door was about to be closed. But the man closest to the door was so scared he couldn't close it, just standing there afraid he would be killed. A staff member saw this, got angry, and kicked him out of the way, then quickly pulled the lever to close the door. But it was too late. Before the door could fully close, Moff's hand reached inside, preventing the door from closing. With just a light push, the seemingly sturdy iron door bent easily. Moff gave a cold smile before a line of "Pray." These people unconsciously backed away in fear. They begged for their lives, but there was no mercy here. A very sumptuous meal took place. A fierce lion locked in a cage with a herd of plump deer. None could escape. The spaceship echoed with desperate screams, accompanied by hopelessness. Wei, the captain of the third research team, was recovering in a test tube. He could no longer hear the doctor's footsteps, not knowing what had happened outside. Anger surged, but he couldn't even clench his fist. Damn it, this must be just a dream. What crime did I commit to deserve this torture? It would be better to die than to live like this in a vegetative state. Suddenly, Wei heard the sound of military armor, the footsteps getting closer. Although he couldn't see, Wei could feel it. These were not the footsteps of a guard. They belonged to that space monster. He never expected that Moff would come looking for him. Moff approached the control panel and randomly pressed a button on it. The guy didn't understand what trick Moff was trying to pull when. From nowhere, a cluster of bubbles appeared inside the test tube he was in. It enveloped Wei's head. He could clearly feel his head burning. His cries for help were in vain, as no one answered. The slime slowly finished the man off. 3 hours later, number 26 had finished eating that Wei guy. Moff wanted to ask, how does it feel to get revenge? Number 26 didn't even know what revenge was, so it had to ask back. Moff explained slowly, it's eating someone who tortured you. That's called revenge. Number 26 just stated flatly, delicious food. Looking at number 26, Moff silently assessed. It seems this number 26 doesn't have emotions like revenge. Maybe it hasn't learned it or isn't capable of it. The previous researchers' studies often focused on it. Could it evolve into something like a sea devil later on? Sea devils only live on planets like amobat bubbles. They're 25 meters tall and hide tentacles inside their bodies. In the game, they look very similar to amobat bubbles, so players suspected that the two were connected. But it turned out that the game company was just lazy with the design. But who knows? Maybe it's different here. Number 26 looked very tired after everything that had just happened. They both left and continued their work. The expansion of the nest went very smoothly, and now that it had settled in, it was time to build a career. Moff would go hunt its next prey. Even in Space C-08, the territory of the Devara gang, desperate cries echoed through space. A hand grabbed a small arm. They were bullying a small girl. Most noticeable was the green-skinned man, not unlike a Namekian from some movie. A young man rushed forward, "Get your hands off her." But before he could reach them, a hole was punched through the young man's body. These were space pirates. They came here to take everything this place had, and not only that, they were also planning to kill the beautiful girl. They were followers of the Devara gang. The leader of the grunts below was this red-haired lion. He sat comfortably above, ignoring the pleas for mercy. He was just lost in thought, working so hard for such a small amount of money. It really wasn't worth the effort. The man below woke him from his thoughts. "Boss, how could you do this to us? We hired your mercenaries. How could this happen?" The boss began to raise his voice, giving the man a scare. "You idiot, did you think I considered you a friend? You paid a few spare coins. What do you expect? Are all you fools at Megacorp the same?" Realizing he had been tricked into a life-or-death situation, the fiend below had no choice but to threaten. "You bastard, the defense force has surely received the distress signal and is on its way. When they get here, all of you will be executed." The big boss, with an indifferent expression, picked his ear and replied, "Oh, so scary. If that's the case, letting you die is still too merciful. I will turn all of you into experimental subjects." The big boss slowly stood up, handing the blade in his hand to the underling below. He slowly approached the man kneeling on the ground. "Look here, Captain, you really don't know the rules of Megacorp, do you? I'm more than willing to teach you." As he spoke, the big boss, with his huge hand, easily grabbed the man's head, a triumphant look on his face. If mercenaries break their contract, it's a serious crime, but if there are no witnesses, that sentence will be invalid. Pressing the steel to the captain's face, the big boss let him know that he had wasted his effort calling the defense force. There will be no one left alive to explain or report what happened here. The other man still couldn't believe that this guy would dare to slaughter everyone here. The big boss licked the blade in his hand. My hobby is skinning those pigs from Megacorp. With a squelch, ketchup splattered everywhere. There were no more human voices. This place was filled only with agonizing screams for mercy. After finishing the job, the big boss returned to the warship, to the reverence of all the underlings waiting for him. Pressing down the face that was no longer intact, the boss ordered his men to handle it as usual. The big boss muttered, "Come to think of it, don't we have more work today than usual?" The underling was puzzled, not understanding his boss's meaning. The big boss was too lazy to explain, simply ordering his underling to go get the garlic. The underling immediately ran off like a lackey. The boss sat again, chin in hand, thinking, "This bunch is a pack of idiots." While he was lost in thought, the garlic arrived. I thought it was a garlic bulb, but this garlic was very strange. She was a person who could live among countless beasts. Getting straight to the point, the big boss asked, "You said you work nearby, right? Something happened here." The girl hesitated, finally daring to speak. "I was supposed to meet someone today through the master connection, but we suddenly lost contact." Hearing this vague and ambiguous story, the lion-like big boss got angry, demanding that she explain in detail. The girl could only bow her head in acceptance. The information revealed that Colonel Samuel of the Comet research team had requested the disposal of a corpse. The big boss was quite surprised to hear that name. The Samuel family, they are the masters of the third capital of this planet. He was also quite curious about the corpse, learning that it was a noble from the capital, a member of the Zujin family. Manoon continued to tell the red-headed lion. The last time they were in contact, they had requested a credit loan of 100 million. This guy immediately sighed, because that money had probably vanished in a thin air. Who could he find now? At the same time, it also raised suspicion that Samuel guy must have some kind of conspiracy here. Lately, the atmosphere in Megacorp has been very strange. It's rumored that the Zujin family of Earthlings is being challenged by the Eden family of the Marslet. Eden's main source of income comes from upgrading spaceships, but they also focus on genetic modification and biological research under that guise. A corpse from the Zujin family. It must have undergone many modifications. A good idea popped into his head. Wait, what if I retrieve the corpse and hand it over to Eden? Eden would pay at least 2 eggs, maybe as much as 10 million. The big boss laughed with delight. Wouldn't this job make a fortune? Mentioning the Eden clan made his blood boil. He reminded himself that he would tear them to pieces for turning him into what he was. But revenge is revenge, and money is still money. The big boss asked again to be sure. "You said you lost contact. Was it an ambush?" Manoon cowered. She didn't know the details of the matter either. The big boss decided they would set off for Samuel's ship right away. After cleaning this place up, everyone get ready to depart. The big boss ordered his underlings to clean up, paying no attention to Manoon. Although she always appeared worried and fearful, she was probably not an ordinary person at all. A short while later, the pirates arrived at the ship where Morph was nesting. They used high-damage mines to create explosions that damaged the spaceship. Morph also felt the explosion. He used his extrasensory link to scout the situation. The enemy had arrived. They were trying to drill through the research ship's hull to get inside. Looking at the drawing on the hull, Morph could confirm that these were the space dogs. Just as Morph said, they drilled a large hole in the ship's hull. The whole group, holding firearms, slowly advanced inside. After destroying the outer hull, they were heading straight for the center. They coordinated quite well, true professional thieves. But I don't know if this bunch is stupid or smart. At a glance, anyone could see that there was something unusual about this ship. Yet this group didn't even bother to notice, blinded by greed. Just like Tomb Raiders looking for treasure. The group kicked the door in, and only then did they realize something was wrong. The place was overgrown with acidic toxin roots. They didn't know what it was, so they had to call their boss for advice. "Boss, we've taken the center, but something's weird. There's no one on the ship, just these strange, creepy plants growing everywhere." The big boss was angry not understanding what nonsense his underlings were spouting. What plans could there be in space? Are you kidding me? Since his underlings were useless, he decided to check it himself. Hiding in the shadows, Morph was still observing the enemy. Seeing that the red-headed lion had double hearts and machinery, he was sure this guy was the leader. Next was the insectoid, who could secrete pheromones from its body. The third one of note was the cyborg from the Star Federation, its body emitting the sound of machinery instead of a heartbeat. This pirate crew was a multiracial legion with decent combat power. Morph was a little worried about having to devour 10 of each race. If he could risk devouring all of them now, his evolution would become incredibly easy. Suddenly, Morph's eyes were drawn to the girl called Manun. He felt something was a bit strange. Why was there a normal person here? Morph felt as if her head contained an entire computer, someone perfectly disguised as a normal person. A very suspicious person. Perhaps he should keep a closer eye on her. As he was about to leave, number 26 asked Morph where he was going. He decided to go out. Number 26 would stay here because the pirates were quite dangerous. The task number 26 needed to do was to guard the plasma gun. After giving instructions, Morph left quickly. This was the only way to act easily while the enemy's guard was down. He would destroy the enemy ship's power source and create a trap to lure them. These pirates are very greedy, so they will protect both this research ship and their own ship. He predicted that they would split their forces in two, a punishment team and a protection team. That would be the moment the hunt begins. As always, Morph would eliminate them one by one. Sharp hands pierced through the door. Then Morph easily tore open the enemy's ship to get inside. There were no alarm devices here. He also thought simply, because robbers never think that one day they themselves would be robbed. With his extrasensory perception, Morph quickly found the nuclear reactor. It wasn't too far away. Except for the android guards, everything seemed fine. They would alert the central AI system as soon as they were attacked. The task was to figure out how to get past without being caught. A bold idea appeared in Morph's head. He smiled with delight. An army marches on its stomach. Now, he should go find something to eat first. No sooner said than done. Morph continued his hunt. Standing in a hidden corner, two guys approached, a human and an insectoid. These two would be quite simple to deal with. Morph confidently appeared before them, and with just one blow, the human's head said goodbye to his body. The insectoid next to him was stunned, not understanding what was happening at all. The radio crackled continuously, just as he was about to use it to warn of danger. The saw blade from Morph's hand stopped him. It was indeed a saw blade. This guy officially became a one-armed insectoid. Not letting him scream and attract attention, Morph quickly rushed forward. Using his iron headbutt technique, then executed this guy quickly and neatly, feasting on the product of his recent hunt. But just as he had thought, eating these insectoids didn't help his evolution process at all. The radio was still calling. "Hey patrol team, what's wrong? Why aren't you saying anything?" Morph mimicked the guys' voices and replied softly, "It's nothing." The suspicion was completely dispelled, for powerful, muscular arms easily smashed the door. Continuing with the plan, Morph realized he didn't need to confront the robots. He had reached the nuclear reactor room. Without wasting any more time, Morph spat out a series of acidic toxins to surround the room and create a nest. Just as he had predicted, if they were human, they would have noticed immediately. But because they were robots, they weren't programmed to react to unexpected situations. And now, let's begin the next steps. A series of images were replayed. They were the crew members and they were terrified. Although there were many of them, they were no longer calm enough to find a way to fight back against Morph. They had all accepted that they would die today. The pirates' eyes widened in disbelief, as the next scene was Morph's massacre of the crew. It was all being replayed on a device, and the big boss broke out in a cold sweat. He was still stunned, not understanding what was happening. Looking around, the place was full of strange plants, and there was no sign of any people, as if it were a ghost ship. The pirates were trying to find more information about the attacker. They reviewed all the ship's footage, but all they could find were people without limbs or who were intact but extremely terrified. No one on the ship was in a normal state. The big boss wondered what they had fought that made them so scared. The big boss continued to order his underlings, "Hey, replay all the footage from the past." The scene switched to Anodor in the control room, commanding the security guards to fight. Looking at the footage, this guy deduced that the personnel on this ship seemed to have lost their nerve, and the high-level management running the ship had all lost their composure. The next scene made this guy's eyes widen in horror. Morph swooped down from above to attack. And even using a plasma weapon, couldn't destroy him. The big boss grimaced. He asserted that the creature on the screen was intelligent. Not only that, but it was highly intelligent and extremely dangerous. Instead of worrying about how to deal with the Zujin family, what he should be worried about now was how to safely retrieve Kizarji's body and get out of this godforsaken place. Seeing Manoon standing still and observing, he called out, but she didn't hear. The big boss angrily shouted. Only then did she startle and turn around. The big boss asked, "You said we lost contact with the outside since yesterday, right?" Manu nodded and replied, "Yes. The original plan was to meet with that cargo ship yesterday, but that ship didn't arrive, so we searched all day." After hearing this, the big boss thought to himself, "I've investigated this research ship quite a bit on the way here. The problem is I don't know what that creature is." As he thought, he laughed to himself because the whole group had tried to infiltrate this ship secretly. Maybe that creature wouldn't know they were here. The big boss ordered, "All right, find that creature and deal with it first, then we'll go find the corpse." Before he could finish his words, an underling frantically reported, "Boss, we have a problem. The ship's engine is broken." The big boss roared, angrily asking the underling again, What do you mean broken? It was running smoothly just now." Bad news came back. The engine on the pirate's ship had melted, so it couldn't be repaired. The big boss was furious. A light swing of his hand smashed the table. The underlings were startled. Manoon also fell to the ground in fear. The big boss regained his composure and asked Manoon, "Hey, controller, can you operate this ship?" She stammered, "I'll have to check to know." But that wasn't the answer the red-headed lion wanted to hear. He blew up a corner, and Manoon's, "I'll have to check," immediately turned into, "I can do it." After that, the pirates split into two teams. 3 stayed to help Manoon control the ship, while the rest would return to their ship to find and destroy the creature. Morph had been standing still, enjoying the show for a while now. He laughed with delight because the lion-headed guy was angry, just as planned. These space dogs still had no idea there were survivors on the ship. About 20 people were hiding, including the commander and high-level managers. Morph spared them not out of a sudden burst of mercy, but because when they met these pirates, Megacorp and them would fight, simply because humans hate space dogs. While the survivors and the pirates were fighting, Morph would take advantage of the situation to act. Currently, there are about 3 pirates and 1 ordinary woman in the control room. This would be an opportunity to attack. But Morph had a bad feeling about this. With the evolution of his extrasensory perception, it warned him that the woman was very dangerous. Remembering Anodor's words made Morph even more suspicious. He didn't know what she was for that Anodor to say she was like him. It seems she is a genetically modified person, but considering she is a high-level personnel at Megacorp, obsessed with extending her lifespan, it seems she has been modified beyond the capabilities of Kisaragi Zujin. If Manoon had truly been modified to the level of a high-tier race, Morph wouldn't be confident enough to defeat her, even if he evolved into his adult form. It had been a long time since he fought a genetically modified person, and encountering such a strong opponent made him feel both scared and excited. First, Morph planned to keep Manoon in his sights and deal with the pirates first. The big boss's killing intent made the underlings with him too scared to speak. Suddenly, one of them used a bioscanner and discovered that there were still humans on the research ship. Specifically, it pointed towards the captain's quarters, but the path was blocked. This guy thought they would probably have to drill a hole to get there. While presenting his idea, he got yelled at for some reason. "When you need to piss, do you ask for my permission?" The underlings didn't want to get chewed out anymore, so they quickly went to drill a hole in the ship's hull. The door was breached. As the group stepped inside, the one in the lead was immediately shot and seriously wounded. Unlike his cowardly underlings, the big boss ignored the gunfire and charged straight inside, as if flying. With just his fists, this guy took care of everyone here. An armed soldier tried to surrender, but pirates have no mercy. The small body was lifted up and died in midair. The entire room was massacred with no one left. The only lucky one to survive was the medical team leader, simply because he was useful to these pirates. The big boss was curious, wondering where the ship's captain was, with only their group here. The medical team leader sincerely replied, "That bastard took an escape pod to flee." He didn't know if the man had escaped, but that was all he knew. The big boss sighed wearily. A monster was destroying the spaceship, and the only human who knew the whereabouts of the body was on an escape pod. The big boss suddenly remembered something. He grabbed the guy by the collar and asked, "You said you're a doctor?" The Does that mean you know where the body is? On this ship, there must be the body of a noble commander. Where is it? That body was taken by that monster. Hearing the answer, the big boss was furious, punching the ship's hull until it dented. The situation was worse now that he knew Morph had taken the body to eat. This guy hastily ordered his underlings to split up and find Morph in teams of 6 and to report back immediately if anything happened. As for the doctor, he was allowed to join the pirate crew, both to add a doctor and to be able to research genetic restructuring. Morph was still observing. This time, it was not what he had expected. The crew was wiped out faster than he thought. But facing a giant mutant, this wasn't surprising at all. They were moving in groups of 6. Except for the leader and one of his underlings, they moved like a normal army. If so, then Morph had to move too. As he was about to leave, number 26 wanted to come along to help Morph. Well, to let number 26 gain some combat experience, Morph decided to let it follow, but before leaving, he had to warn it. This time the enemy is extremely dangerous. Be careful. As he walked, Morph thought where to start, and what he chose was their armory. Back to the pirates. They were trying to get deeper inside by drilling holes like before. The insectoid wondered, what is this? A forest? What kind of monster has the ability to make trees grow taller than that door? Moreover, we have to clear all this to install the plasma cutter. One of them thought clearing it was a hassle. He took his firearm and cut these roots. The green acid inside splattered, splashing all over the person next to him. They thought it was just normal slime. At first they found it gross, sticky, and slimy. But the firearm the guy just used to cut the roots began to melt due to the corrosive acid. His teammate suffered the same fate. His face began to deform, and then after a few seconds, his whole body began to melt, and he died on the spot. The other guy saw this and backed away, afraid of getting touched. Then he felt something and turned around to see what it was. Then from nowhere, Morph appeared, and with a single blow, this guy followed his teammate. The remaining 4 were stunned. They realized Morph was the monster they had to destroy, but something was strange. He didn't look like what they had seen on the camera in the control room. There was no time for questions. All 4 raised their guns and fired straight at Morph. But it was like a mosquito biting stainless steel. It did no damage at all, not even a scratch. Morph continued to charge, and with a single swing of his saw blade, he cut 2 of them into 4 halves with ease. The insectoid tried to run, but there was no escape. Number 26 had grabbed him and was slowly squeezing him in a bubble. The last survivor of the group of 6, terrified, used his radio to call for help. Help, that monster is here. We need backup. Before he could finish his sentence, quick as a flash, this guy was devoured by Morph, ketchup splattering all over the room. Morph slowly picked up the radio. The other side was still urgently asking, "Where are you? Why aren't you saying anything now?" With his voice-mimicking ability, Morph easily responded, "My mistake. There's nothing unusual here." The other end of the line cursed for giving them a scare. "What? Are you crazy? You dare to joke on the communication channel?" Morph gently apologized for the disturbance. He continued to think, should I keep the radio or not, because it would be useful for misdirection. After looking around for a moment, the guy whose head he had just bitten was still breathing because he was a cyborg from the Star Federation. In contrast to Megacorp's genetic enhancements and modifications, the Star Federation believed that replacing the weak human body with machinery would make humans stronger. The problem was that they forced other races to realize their beliefs as well. They would modify any race they captured as hostages, whether they wanted to or not. Both Megacorp and the Star Federation are crazy. Although the guy was still alive and calling for help, his fate was sealed. Even if he was a machine, eating him would probably be fine. Taking a bite, it exceeded his expectations. It tasted more appealing than Morph thought. With half a body of machine, it had a rich, coppery machine oil flavor. The system unexpectedly appeared again, signaling a new evolution. Cyborgs were treated as a separate race, just like in a game. Morph had collected enough of the first intelligent creature. Even he hadn't expected this. There were 12 cyborg pirates on this spaceship, so he could evolve to the next stage in one go if he devoured them all. Number 26 saw Morph's eager expression and approached to ask. He just gave a brief answer to number 26 and quickly left the place. It was funny. Everyone called these space dogs the scourge of the universe. But on the contrary, to him, they were like Santa Claus, coming to give gifts every Christmas. Continuing Morph's endless hunt, it was the same old script. These guys attacked him with guns, but it was useless. Morph completely overwhelmed them, easily taking them down one by one. In a flash, he had already wiped out 2 teams. But Morph had lost 3 tasty morsels. Those 3 cyborgs seemed to have been covered in the acid solution in the armory. Everything had melted except for one of their legs. He decided to eat it just in case, or if he was lucky, he might still get some effect. But as soon as he put it in his mouth, Morph immediately spat it out. He didn't get the predation effect, so eating it was no different from chewing a pile of scrap metal. Meanwhile, number 26 was about to deal with one, but Morph acted first. Number 26 was a bit puzzled, not understanding why Morph stole its prey. Morph just explained that he had to finish off all those who looked like this, because they were very dangerous. Number 26 just needed to stand and observe. Number 26 didn't mind, leaving and wishing Morph a good meal. Morph felt a little guilty for doing this to number 26, but he had no other choice. The radio on the guy's arm crackled with a message. All survivors, report in. This is the command room. We are still operational. There's a lot to retrieve from the cargo bay. Things have gotten out of control, so be careful. Once again, Moff imitates their voices to deceive them, saying he is searching the ship's armory. He thought it was safe, but the command room asked, "You guys in the lab, aren't you going to answer?" A little flustered, Moff takes out a walkie-talkie he had obtained earlier and replies, "The lab is secure." Noticing the different voice, the commander asks, "What is your radio operator doing?" Moff sweats a little at the question and has to make up an excuse. He's cleaning up. Finally out of danger, he breathes a sigh of relief. These guys seem quite robotic compared to the space pirates. That leader is just a giant mutant, but he definitely has to keep an eye on him. Also, Moff never expected to be fighting alongside number 26 in such a big battle. If people knew, they would be very surprised. This is because the Amoth species is known for its solo playstyle. In real life, he is also an introvert. Everything that has started here is different from what he saw in the game. It makes him both anxious and strangely excited. Meanwhile, the big boss's intuition tells him something is quite unusual. He is extremely strict about mission reports, having come from the military. How could someone who knows what happens when orders are disobeyed make such a foolish mistake? His wild instincts are warning him that this could be a trap. There is something very strange about the soldier in the lab. He radios his subordinates to gather at the laboratory immediately. This guy is not simple. He also has a plan to eliminate Moff. First, he will find an escape route and plant a bomb in the engine bay. The engine is nuclear-powered, so even a small bomb is enough to blow it up. After escaping safely, the big boss will detonate the ship from a distance, and that dangerous monster will be gone along with the ship. Of course, there will be a trade-off. The gang's warriors will also be left behind and blown up with the ship. But there are plenty of creatures out there who want to become space pirates. The gang has no shortage of people. He just needs to take that woman man, Un, to pilot the ship, and that gene research doctor. As they were walking, the doctor was called back by the big boss. "Hey doctor, you've encountered that monster, right? Did you see its weakness?" The doctor's answer of no startles the big boss. Thinking the guy was spouting nonsense, a subordinate was about to hit the doctor with his gun stock. But what the doctor said was the truth. He had no reason to lie. The big boss understands this. He knows the doctor is a coward and is very afraid of them. Yet he dared to say that, which proves this guy fears the monster even more than he fears the big boss. The big boss asks further, "So what about its strength and personality?" The doctor is still haunted. "It moves like a phantom, devours people in an instant, and leaves no trace." The entire crew didn't realize anyone was missing until much later. The big boss curses, "Isn't it because you all are idiots that you didn't notice?" The doctor justifies, "There are countless security systems on this ship, so many that we can't even count them all. You could avoid all of them and act with ease. If it's not a ghost, they don't know what kind of creature it is." The big boss falls into deep thought again. What he said sounds ridiculous, but it seems he's not lying. "I'll tell the others to regroup. Change a battle plan. Everyone regroup." With that announcement, of course, Moff heard it too. He feels this guy is quite smart. He wasn't fooled by the trap that even deceived Moff's human side. Perhaps it's thanks to the natural instincts of a mutant giant. But it's too late. The space pirates, though complaining, are heading to the designated point. This time, Moff will attack them with a new plan. From Moff's ears, tentacles like small tree roots sprout and plug directly into the wall. the nest manipulation skill is activated. His perception will be expanded through these branches. A stream of senses flows through his consciousness, invading the corridors and rooms. Everything is connected, and the space pirates are now within his field of observation. From the roots that form his nest, Moth can use the paralyzing spores skill. A black gas suddenly appears in the air, catching the whole group completely off guard. Those who inhale the toxic gas begin to feel their bodies go numb and nauseous. A few agile ones try to run away, but don't make it in time. The poison is too strong. They all collapse to the ground, lying perfectly still, unable to move. Moth will be able to use nest manipulation more smoothly when he evolves to the next level. He just wanted to try this skill out of curiosity to see its effect. Unexpectedly, it was more effective than he thought. Although useful, it consumes an extreme amount of stamina, leaving Moth exhausted. It used too much energy, so now his stomach feels hungry again. Moth drags his large body to find food for himself. The group paralyzed by the poison just now are delicious, plump prey. As he chews ravenously, he thinks that the space pirates will most likely abandon their comrades. But it's not worth worrying about. It's better to get a meal without having to fight. Number 26 also takes the opportunity to grab an arm to eat and recover its strength. 5 of the 7 eaten here were cyborgs, and now Moth has 8 cyborgs. He needs 2 more to reach a new evolutionary form, the juvenile form. Thinking everyone had been taken down by the poison, it turns out 5 lucky survivors ran into the training room. Moth wonders, why did they go in there instead of somewhere else? They probably thought it had a better line of sight and vantage point, as the training room is larger than other rooms. The previous crew had the same idea, a place where great minds meet. And in the end, it became a slaughterhouse. Seeing the pile of corpses, the 5 space pirates' eyes widen in terror. Moth can sense their presence and breath behind the door. He bets the sight of all the bodies inside must have shocked them. Moth is about to go in, so he tells number 26 to hide behind him. His large, sharp arm pierces the door, then slowly pushes it wide open. There are already 20 dead guys here, so 5 more won't make the room too crowded. This group isn't stupid. They were prepared. When Moth rushes in, laser beams are immediately fired. But it is then that they realize their mistake. They shouldn't have fought the monster head-on, because their ordinary guns cannot penetrate Moth's shell. Out of options, the blue-haired guy pulls out a laser sword. His face turns pale, but he still asks, "Hey, you bastard, do you know who I am?" He answers his own question, "I am the vice captain of the Drava gang." Then he swings the sword wildly to keep Moth from getting close. Moth pauses for a moment, a little wary. It's not because of the title of vice captain of some gang, but because of the sound sword in his hand. It can cut through Moth's shell. But a good weapon means nothing when the wielder doesn't know how to fight. His auxiliary organ tells Moth that he is just an ordinary person in his 30s with lifestyle-related diseases. This hasty action is truly that of a mad robber, biting randomly when cornered. Wasting no more time, Moth charges directly at him. The guy swings his sword, trying to cut Moth in half, but he easily dodges it, then gives the guy a scratch on the stomach, sending him flying backward, crashing right into a pile of weights. Despite being wounded to the point of being unable to fight, he doesn't beg for mercy and picks up his sword intending to fight back. Moth has to exclaim that it's truly unexpected. Since Anno appeared, this is the first prey to be so persistent. Moth will grant him a favor, which is to finish him off quickly so he doesn't have to suffer any longer. True to his word, he finishes off the vice captain, stabbing and slashing as he usually does. Now there are 4 more people here, probably hiding in the locker room. A system notification suddenly appears. Moth's eyes widen, staring intently at the screen. After eating that guy, he received the human nature trait. Moth doesn't know what kind of trait it is. The name sounds comprehensive, but he still hesitates a bit, although in his current weak state, he doesn't have the right to be picky. In space survival, thousands upon thousands of different traits exist, but not all of them are beneficial. The aggressive, genetically modified giant trait is a prime example. That's the trait the big boss possesses. It allows his physical abilities to double, but he loses control of his body. There are still other traits where the disadvantages outweigh the benefits. In his experience, traits with vague names are often extremely dangerous. Moth is still very hesitant. After all, this space survival universe is a dystopia filled with malicious creatures. The Galaxy Guild, which specializes in kidnapping people, and turning them into robots. Megacorp, which creates monsters by arbitrarily modifying genes as they please. Moff thinks to himself, this is a universe where creatures like them lead human society. So there's no way a trait so full of human qualities could exist. If there's a trait that enhances human emotions, it would be a disadvantage for the Moff species, a creature that prioritizes intellect above all else. The risk is too high. Moff decides to reject this human nature trait. As he is about to refuse, a sudden electric current runs through his body. He doesn't understand why his auxiliary organ just warned him to reconsider. Is it so important that it activates an ability that only appears in times of danger? And especially, the small, sensitive tentacles on his body have never forced Moff to make dangerous choices. Perhaps he can trust it. He extends a finger and presses directly on the word accept. A brilliant flash of light, like the light of the party. But it stops there. Nothing happens. No new parts grew on his head, nor did he feel any sense of guilt. Perhaps this human nature trait is classified as a mental trait. Moff is curious to see the details of the human nature trait. The system has a brief note. Human nature, at the moment of choice, this ability will help you make the right decision. May your choice be worthy. Moff scratches his head. With only this note from the system, he doesn't know if it's good or bad. But now he only needs 3 more people to achieve the superpower enhancement type, so he should focus on that instead. Seeing Moff motionless for a long time, number 26 worriedly checks on him. Moff doesn't need its concern. He says nothing, just puts it on his shoulder and prepares to continue hunting. Moff can smell the scent of the robbers from every nook and cranny of the training room. And of course, none of them can escape him. Once again, a desperate cry for help rings out. One man, so terrified, chose to hide in a locker. His whole body trembled violently, and he didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He silently lamented that he had always lived a decent life and never harmed anyone. Yet now he found himself in such a dire situation. Through the crack of the locker door, he saw the massacre before him. At that moment, all he could do was believe in God, asking him to protect him. Just then, Moff walked over, then gently turned and walked away as if he didn't know the man was hiding there. He felt he had escaped death thanks to God. He let out a sigh of relief. After this, he would do more good deeds and thank God with all his heart. But what are gods to someone without faith like Moff? The guy was stabbed straight through. Moff slowly tore open the locker door, then rushed in to devour his prey, while the man was helpless with no strength to resist. Just now, Moff wanted to play with his prey a little. There was no way that guy could have escaped from this place. Moff has already devoured 7 cyborgs. Only 1 more is needed for him to evolve, but the problem is that the last one is in the control room, and the person he wants to avoid the most is also there. The genetically modified woman Moff believes is from the Zujin clan. Moff will deal with the big boss first, instead of facing her so soon. After taking 2 steps, Moff is startled by a sudden attack from nowhere. Luckily, he is quick enough to dodge it. Taking that cannonball to the face would have been a real problem. The one who just attacked is the leader of the Breva gang. Moff didn't expect this guy to find him, but this is actually more convenient, saving him the trouble of moving. The mutant giant has a lot of great genes, and he also needs to stock up on more genes before entering the control room. Glancing at the other side's lineup, Moff also sees the head of the medical team there. He didn't expect him to side with the robbers, which is quite a surprise. Moff confidently asserts, but none of this matters. They'll all end up in his stomach anyway. Moff turns around and tells number 26 to find a hiding place, because this battle is quite dangerous. Number 26 quickly gets off his shoulder, jumps back, and finds a safe hiding spot. It doesn't forget to remind its friend, be careful. As for Moff, he slowly approaches the leader, sizing him up. He has to admit that this guy looks scarier than he thought. As big as an elephant, over 3 meters tall. Anyone looking at this matchup would say it's uneven because Moff is only a third of his size. Since this guy is a modified mutant giant, Moff is quite looking forward to what he is about to show him. Through the camera screen, the subordinates along with Man Un can also watch the impending battle. They intend to go out and help their big boss. But with his personality, they would get their heads twisted off if they went out there, because their mission is to stay here and guard Man Un. The cyborg turns to ask Man Un, "Hey Man Un, How much longer? She's tried to gain access, to take control of the ship as the big boss requested, but it seems the progress is not very fast. Although a bit outdated, this is still the AI system of a megacorp warship, and it's the core of computer science and space engineering, so the operation is not easy at all. The space pirates are confused by what Man-Un is saying. They don't care about this. They just need Man-Un to hurry up so they can go help their big boss. Man-Un says yes, but her actions are the opposite because she has other thoughts in her mind. Arnold did a great job. The monster cleverly used a smokescreen to hide itself, but how could it escape my notice and the remote tracker? It has swept through the central lab and dealt with all the gene samples. Man-Un assesses that this creature's intelligence is by no means ordinary. Based on the report, Man-Un knows Moff only took the gene samples, confirming that Moff knows how to use his own skills. Man-Un speculates that this is probably a type of monster that absorbs genes to evolve. If so, is similar to her. If that's the truth, then that big boss Elchin has no way of defeating it. Thinking back, Elchin, he's just a monster enhanced at the will of others, a pitiful creature. He probably doesn't even know where he came from. Suddenly, Man-Un chuckles to herself. Just when she was sick to death of that old man, she gets good news. These robbers are no longer useful to her. So Man-Un will take this opportunity to reduce the number of genes Moff can acquire. Seeing Man-Un stand up, the blue-haired guy asks, Man-Un, are you done? Then let's go. She doesn't answer the two men and just slowly approaches. She slowly takes off her glasses, revealing her true face. From within her sleeve, a blade is drawn. Man-Un has many names. The enemies of Megacorp call her by the affectionate name Mystic Witch. Her clan, however, calls her Phantom Shadow and always shows her reverence and fear. Her real name is Akia Zujin. The leader calls her by the codename Y, and the man who was once her father would call her Si-hyun. This woman is the epitome of the Zujin clan's genetic engineering and the sole heir of a forgotten lineage of this house. The scene shifts back to the battle between Moff and Elchin. The leader confidently rushes to attack Moff. First strike is the strongest. Whoever attacks first has the advantage. Moff gently dodges to the side, then counterattacks by trying to punch a hole in Elchin's stomach. However, that large body doesn't mean he's slow. Elchin blocks the blow with his steel-plated knee. Moff sees an opening and uses his saw-like blade to launch a surprise attack. But unexpectedly, Elchin blocks it again and even counters with a rather painful blow. It makes his superhuman organs go numb. He doesn't know when his opponent activated the shock grenade, but if that's all it takes to defeat him like those combat cyborgs, then he is being greatly underestimated. After exchanging a few blows just now, Elchin also realizes his opponent is not a new weapon created by the Galaxy Guild. Moff asks Elchin, "You understand what I'm saying, right?" But the guy doesn't listen. He just points to his head. Elchin lays his cards on the table with Moff. I've planted a bomb in the nuclear reactor. The detonator is synchronized with my heart. So if I die here today, it means this ship will explode and everyone will die here. Moff uses his extrasensory perception. The doctor's expression confirms the man's words. He's not bluffing. The problem is whether he will recklessly detonate the bomb or not. Because Moff sees that this guy values his own life quite a lot. Superior intellect, a transcendent body, and an arrogant nature that reaches the heavens. Nothing can extinguish his will to survive. Elchin presses the red button on his head. The cells in his body seem to explode, causing him momentary, extreme pain, making him spit red syrup from his mouth. His body seems to be enhanced, muscles bulging. He was already big, and now he's even bigger. Elchin starts to go berserk, as if wanting to destroy everything. Moff watches from the side and feels a bit intimidated, thinking to himself, this guy is hideous. It's just a gene implant. What's so great about it? But with a physique of this size, it's very likely he has the genes of a mountain walker in him. This species has a tough shell, so it's also known by another name, Stone Dragon. Not letting Moff wait long, Elchin rushes forward with a thunderous punch. With his nimble speed, Moff ducks and dodges it. Then he counterattacks with his flexible tail, intending to pierce straight through the heart to end the fight. But he suddenly remembers the bomb in his heart. So he stops, not daring to attack further. Taking advantage of that hesitation, Elchin lands a straight punch on Moff's head, then tries to grab the tail to stop Moff from running. But Moff is no pushover either. He's not stupid enough to stand still and let him attack like that. Moff dodges, then retreats, keeping his distance from Elchin. Thinking back on the situation just now, Moff feels lucky. If it weren't for his rock-hard head, he would have been a goner from that punch. Moff was just wondering why he was clinging to the bomb and what his scheme was. It turns out it was just a dirty trick. On the opposite side, Elchin smiles provocatively. No matter how you attack, it's useless. Moff realizes that too. Except for his heart area, there aren't many other places for him to target. The shell covering his arms and legs is too hard. Without a plasma weapon, no other weapon could destroy them. If he can just land one hit on the guy's body, Moff is sure he will win. But he hasn't figured out how, and this Elchin guy has probably seen this. He's focusing on targeting his tail. Elchin remains the aggressor. He leaps high into the air to deliver punches with terrifying power, but Moff isn't foolish enough to confront him directly. He chooses to use guerrilla tactics. Returning to what Moff mentioned earlier, his tail isn't his only dangerous weapon. He can also secrete toxins from his teeth and claws. Now he just needs to break through the shell covering Elchin's body and then attack him, and victory will surely be his. As for how to get past the shield that this guy is so proud of, he might have to use the light sword he took from Elchin's subordinate. Moreover, the mutant giant has a fatal weakness. He just needs to hold out until that weakness is exposed. Moff remembers the ship bay where he first awakened. It's the perfect place to stall for time with him. While thinking of all these plans in his head, Elchin is still relentlessly chasing him, and Moff is running for his life. After a long chase, both have reached the ship bay where Moff first awakened. Elchin is furious that he can't catch Moff. He roars with rage. As for Moff, he runs while casually catching and eating cockroaches. It's a way to recharge his energy so he can prolong the time with this guy. Simply because Moff knows he has absolutely no chance against the terrifying strength of the one behind him. The mutant giant is both strong and fast, but it will quickly exhaust its stamina. So there will be a time when he has to take a break to recover his strength. Moff will continue to provoke him until he is exhausted. Whether he likes it or not, the huge body will not allow him to continue attacking. Moff's only option now is to be calm and wait for the right moment. Moff has temporarily hidden in a corner, while Elchin is still trying to find him. Observing from above, Moff remembers that he has two hearts. He wonders which one is connected to the detonator. The main heart of a mutant giant is usually on the left, so it's very likely he chose that one to connect to the detonator. These guys aren't like brainless gorillas, so he can't be sure about that. After searching for a while, Elchin finally finds Moff behind some containers. A powerful punch is thrown, but unfortunately, it hits the air and not Moff because he had already vanished. Despite being called a coward who's only good at running, Moff doesn't care. As for Elchin, he has started to show signs of exhaustion. His legs unconsciously buckle slightly, signaling that he can't hold on for much longer. Moff catches sight of this and assesses that this guy must have been modified, so his weaknesses are somewhat reduced. He should have stopped moving by now. Nothing has changed so far, except for his speed, but it seems he can't avoid having to rest for a while. And that was when the opportunity Moff had been waiting for arrived. He jumped down from above. Elchin also sensed it and intended to strike him, but with a body somewhat slowed by fatigue, he couldn't possibly hit Moff. Moff landed safely, then suddenly rushed forward like an arrow. The weakness was exposed. The opportunity had come. Moff drew the sword tucked at his side, slashing straight at Elchin's arm. Like a dog, he bit directly into the exposed flesh. Elchin, enraged, threw Moff straight into the wall, which caved in, leaving a huge hole. Just as he was about to step forward to deliver a thunderous punch, Elchin's body suddenly froze. Moff laughed with delight, while Elchin's body continued to tremble uncontrollably. He couldn't control his body, then lost control and collapsed to the ground. Moff remarked that the toxin wasn't as effective as when he used it on humans, but must be spreading. Contrary to his earlier ferocity, Elchin now began to cry out for help in fear. But there was no mercy here. With his sharp hands, Moff began to skin, then dissected Elchin on the spot without any tools. Two hearts gradually appeared. A detonator was connected to his second heart on the right side. Any impact would activate the timer. This heart would limit the side effects of the genetic modification, and knowing he would die if this part was damaged, that guy wanted to drag Moff down to hell with him. It would probably take a while to remove the detonator. He hesitated a little. After removing the detonator, should he get rid of all the mutated giant gene samples? While he was lost in thought, number 26 appeared. Moff was a bit confused because he had warned that this place was extremely dangerous and told number 26 to hide well. But number 26 came here to bring him some very bad news. Before it could speak, his extrasensory perception had already told him what it was. An image of the future appeared. A flame was rushing towards them. If they didn't dodge in time, both he and number 26 would become cooked creatures. Then his body would be cut into 3 equal pieces. Realizing the danger, Moff immediately sprinted at full speed to number 26, grabbing it and quickly fled. At the same time, a blazing fire appeared from nowhere. Luckily, Moff managed to dodge it. The newcomer was none other than Manuin. She laughed mockingly at the sight of Moff fleeing, because she knew Moff could not escape from her grasp at all. Moff now felt a terrifying pressure. He had originally planned to collect all the genes before dealing with her last, but he didn't expect her to come here herself. A glowing sword protruded from her arm. This woman's genes had been mixed with the genes of the white Galagans, as well as high-grade parts. Not to mention, even with the naked eye, he could see she had dozens of other genes in her body. In this situation, Moff was certain he couldn't fight Manuin. Moff's entire body was signaling him not to confront that creature, to run away before things got worse. He had to endure, take a step back, and reorganize everything. Back to Elchin. He was faintly calling Manuin's name, hoping to be saved by her. But she immediately used the sword in her hand, stabbing straight into the heart connected to the time bomb. Moff's face darkened, not knowing what to do, because the tip of the sword had just activated the bomb's timer. Attacking now would be no different from suicide. Moff was forced to observe the enemy further, trying to gather more information. Looking at her eyes, were they those of an observer from outer space or a daredevil? Moff spoke first to Manuin. I have a proposal. Before Moff could finish, Manuin cut him off. It seems you are like me, so I will spare your life, but on one condition: you must become my subordinate. In other words, I want you to become my pet. You are a parasitic creature, and I am the perfect person to be your master. The invitation was extremely tempting. Manuin persuaded Moff to become her slave, to obey her every command. Moff sensed the danger. She wasn't inviting, but was informing and demanding he become her slave. Faced with such a fearsome being, Moff was forced to make a choice. His extrasensory perception told him she wasn't lying, and she had no need to lie. The blade on her wrist was made from a Galagan's claw. That thing could easily cut him into many pieces in an instant. Not only that, she surely had many other dangerous weapons he didn't know about. To be honest, submitting to her wasn't a bad option. When Manuin saw that Moff was wavering and considering becoming her slave, she smiled with delight. Moff bowed his head, slowly approaching Manuin as if acknowledging his master, submitting to his master. But in Moff's mind at that moment, there were thousands of different thoughts. She had no idea why he wanted to become an Amov. The only reason he was obsessed with studying this strange, useless creature, nor did she know why people called him Moff Park. His reason was very simple: to be able to evolve freely. With each evolution, Moff became significantly stronger. That's why he was so fascinated by this Amov species. His choice when facing someone as strong as Manuin was extremely important. Moff bowed his head like a dog before its master. Manuin was delighted, reaching out her arm to pat her dear pet's head. Good, you are indeed a good dog. But Moff's next action left her utterly shocked. Taking advantage of Manuin's unguarded moment, Moff tore open some acid-filled roots and threw them straight at her face. In order to escape, he told number 26 to hold on tight. Moff was going to get out of this place. Manuin laughed angrily. Ka Lums, so this is your choice. The laughter grew louder, and a terrifying expression appeared with it. She lunged forward with the sword in her hand, surrounded by fire magic, which shot straight towards where Moff was trying to flee. The power was so immense that the room was about to collapse. Needless to say, Moff knew she was much stronger than him, the strongest opponent he had ever faced since becoming a ferocious Amov variant. He had encountered many powerful enemies before, and he was always the victor. This time would be no different from the previous ones. He would teach that arrogant, competitive woman a lesson, that strength is not what decides the outcome of a fight. The entire room had collapsed. Elchin slowly tried to rise from the rubble. After being stabbed by Manuin, he was still barely breathing, waiting to die. Elchin never expected to be betrayed. Hatred surged within him. He swore he would make that woman Manuan kneel and beg. But right now, his equipment was severely damaged. If he didn't get to the engine room within 10 minutes, he would be the one to die, not Manuan. Although he was so severely injured that his whole body trembled without strength, Eltrin still tried to drag himself up. He couldn't possibly die here. He was not like the small fries around, because he was the cunning leader of a notorious gang. He was Eltrin Drava. My video ends here. The above is the summary of part 1 of the story. If you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section below. Don't forget to leave me a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to receive more interesting videos. For now, goodbye and see you again. Bye-bye.